I'm going to call this meeting of the Salem City Council for January 22nd to order. And we will begin with a roll call.
Councillor Kaiser. Present. Councillor Anderson.
Likewise.
Councillor Nanke. Here. Councillor McCoy.
Here.
Councillor Ossick. Absent maybe. Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Cook. Here. Councillor Lewis.
Here.
And Mayor Bennett.
Here. Okay, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Councilor McCoy, do you have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. I move additions to I move approval of the additions to the agenda. And those additions are 3.3F, which is confirming direction from the January 16th City Council Policy Agenda Work Session and next steps, and 5.B, which are city comments regarding Detroit Dam Downstream Passage Project.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. And we now have council and city manager comments. Any of the council have any comments? Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know it was my pleasure to fill in for Mayor Bennett at the annual Meet the Mayor at the Salem Association of Realtors. And Ms. Mayor, you got a very warm welcome. You know, as I sat there, I remembered the time that I was the executive director of the Realtor Association. They had membership under 500. It's now over 1,000. There was one particular year, I think it was 2010, where 4 out of 5 realtors did not have a closing. And for those that don't understand that, if you don't have a closing, you don't make any money. 4 out of 5. But yet, in 2010, the realtors continued to do their annual Children's Christmas Party, where they collect over $10,000 and have a party for the most disadvantaged kids, about 150 of them. And that continued during those bad years. And at this meeting that I attended, they were talking about the results of this year's, and again, it was a success, serving over 120 kids. And so I just wanted to thank the mayor for letting me attend that meeting.
I want to thank you for doing it. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Monday, a week ago today, was Martin Luther King Day, the celebration, and really pretty much of a weekend celebration of the community. My wife and I went to a service on Sunday afternoon at the Seed of Hope Church that was sponsored by the Coalition of African American Pastors. And speaking as the son of a Presbyterian minister, that was a service. Also on Monday, there was a celebration of Martin Luther King at McNary High School. The mayor was there, and McKay, excuse me, thank you, Mr. Ward 6 over there. McKay High School, the mayor was there and welcomed people, and Councilors Hoy and Kaiser and I were there too, and we participated in the events, which included a very well-attended rally and speeches, and then a march down Lancaster Boulevard and back. So I'm glad that we could do that and represent the city council, and I'm glad that the city is doing what we can to follow in the steps of Dr. King. Thank you.
Councilor Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Anderson stole a little bit of my thunder. I wanted to thank you and my fellow councilors for coming out to the heart of Salem in Ward 6 on Monday and celebrating Martin
We'll
Luther.
have a town center out there.
Willamette Town Center is also there, yes, as is McKay High School, and it was a wonderful rally and celebration, and I was very pleased to have so many folks come out to Ward 6. We don't often get a big crowd like that out in my part of town, and it was really welcomed. Also, I just wanted to let my colleagues know that I spent probably 45 minutes on Coral Avenue on that same weekend with the Kadatzes and got to witness firsthand some of the progress that's been made. It was really rewarding to see some of the results of from the good work that staff has done out there, and I also got to see some of our challenges that are still ahead. So I wanted you to know I've been out there, spoke with them for quite a lengthy amount of time, and it was really productive. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I had a chance to see also their email, and I thought that, and the emails that came in from that visit, it was really quite positive. I didn't see that. Great. I had the opportunity to speak and participate in the retirement of Baco and Jake at the ice rink, which had a couple of real special moments. I heard. It was sort of embarrassing. One of the dogs got really excited on the ice. So, but it was really a great opportunity to pay tribute to two of the officers we rarely get to have a chance to do that with. These. I was real taken with Jake's record. He's been on 600 pursuits, captured 400 folks who tried to get away. So odds were if Jake wanted you, Jake got you. As I understood it, am I correct, Counselor? The perpetrator's the treat in this dog's life.
I believe so. I believe bad guys are their favorite treat, yes.
Yeah. So it was all pretty exciting. And if you'll recall, Baco was the dog that was shot during the really major standoff at Walmart out at the east end of Mission Street. So it was really a great opportunity. It was also announced that there had been 2 large contributions to the Salem Police Foundation toward getting 2 new police dogs. It really substantial contributions had been made. So very good event, along with, as you mentioned, the Martin Luther King Day, which is quite exciting and really quite moving. So all in all, a good week. Anyone else? Very good, thank you. City Manager?
I just want to thank Council for the allowing us to add those 2 additions to the agenda this evening. Both are important issues that staff is prepared to speak to this evening, if so desired by Council.
Great. Very good. Well, I have one proclamation this evening. It's Black History Month in February. And our friend Willie Richardson, the president of the local chapter of Oregon Black Pioneers, is here this evening to receive the proclamation. So, Willie, come on down.
I'll take a long time.
Okay, and is that working? Yeah. Okay. And the proclamation reads, whereas in Oregon, the earliest documented African American is Marcus Lopez, a crew member of the ship Lady Washington in Tillamook on August 14, 1788. The history of African Americans in Oregon and in Salem since that time is rich and full. And whereas in February 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson introduced Negro History Week, and in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout America, and is an accepted national event celebrating the contributions of African American people in the development of the United States. And whereas each February, communities across Oregon join to celebrate Black History Month and provide Oregonians with an opportunity to pay tribute to African American community to the African American community and the richness of Black culture that has helped shape our state and city. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all citizens of the city of Salem to reflect on the history, significant contributions, and accomplishments, as well as remember those Black pioneers who advanced civil rights, fortified communities and families, educated their children, and contributed to the communities in which they lived. And whereas we pay global and local tribute to African American history, and we recognize the Oregon Northwest Black pioneers for their focus and effort to make known the Oregon African American story and contributions. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2018 as Black History Month in the city of Salem, Oregon, and encourage all residents of Salem to join in learning about and celebrating the contributions of African Americans have made to our country, our state, and to our community, dated this 22nd day of January 2018. And I want to And this is Willie Richardson, president of the local chapter of Oregon Black Pioneers, and Willie's got some words to share with us.
I do, but I need to go back there.
Oh, you
I
just take the bike and go in.
Oh, don't do that to me. That's not a good thing to do. That's dangerous, actually. First, while I'm walking to my spot over here to grab some items and the few comments I made, I want to thank you for this. It is always appreciated to have recognition given to you for what you do and what you have done. So I thank you for that. And I do have a couple of more comments. Don't never give a woman like me a microphone because you can run into a headwind. Okay. I'm also going to need the assistance of one of your staff people. I have something I need each counselor to have as I talk.
I was thinking for like a magic trick.
Thank you very much. I got too many mics, y'all. Way too many mics for this little old lady right here. I'm going to try to be brief. I had some comments that I wanted to make, and I'm going to digress from them for a little bit, because I'm a from the heart kind of person 99% of the time. And it really stems and starts with saying that I am one of 47.5 million people who are descendants from countries that was so horribly referred to and talked about. Our ancestors were snatched from their homeland, and they were beaten, shackled, starved, and stacked and put in the bellies of slave ships and crossed oceans, and then put in fields and abused, hung, lynched is a new word, for somebody else to make an awful lot of money. And I will tell you from the heart that before anger and rage took over, I was hurt to my core, because we are a people that have given a lot to this nation. It was on our backsides. We're the second strongest thread in the fabric of this country. The Native American is the strong in the first. We come second because of the blood and the sweat and the toiling that we went through our foreparents, the slave, first of all, trying to ensure, if you will, that this little old girl from the state of South Carolina, who now lives in the city we call Salem, and have been here soon to be 40 years. And of that 40 years, the greater portion of it is having tried to be a good, productive citizen and being an active participant in this, what we have, city government, state government, you name it, whatever it took to try to be a part of solutions to whatever the problems were. And so I had to struggle with that. At the same time, the organization that I am president of has been in existence for 25 years. How many of you know that? Working here, trying to ferret out the story of the Oregon African American and tell it such that we all know how this state has grown and how they were contributors to everything Oregon. The footprint, the body print, you know, the handprint, all that is over everything. You can see African in a whole lot of stuff across this land, not just Oregon, it's across this land. And we've been telling the stories in such a way that it doesn't do greater harm. Because see, you can tell the truth about any story without making the new descendant of old ancestors feel guilty about anything. Because the truth of a story is truth. You don't have to do anything but tell the truth. And you can accept truth, no matter who it comes from. Truth is truth. And that's what we do and have been. We've gone into your schools. You talk about McKay, you know, you're talking about, you know, South, you're talking about Sprague, you know, the middle schools and all this. We have been in those schools with your children, trying to help them understand Oregon's African American history. We share that with them. Now, what I'm going to ask you guys to do here for me this evening, because I don't want to go on I'm not from Seed of Faith, okay? I can't preach that way, but I'm good at what I do, okay? Now, we have done this is our 4th exhibit coming up at the Oregon Historical Society. Has any counselor been to any exhibit at the Oregon Historical Society that this organization has produced? See history? The accuracy of history? Thank you. We're doing our 4th one now. And where is my helper? Did it go around? You have in a packet there some information that's it is about the exhibit. And what I have provided to you to make sure that you go, you don't even have to pay to get in. I'm giving you 2 tickets, so take a friend or a spouse or some significant other, whoever, you know. You got 2 free tickets. That exhibit is up until June 24th, I believe, somewhere along in there. Please go see that, because it is about the civil rights movement that happened here in Oregon. Somebody said, well, we didn't have that. Yes, you did. And you had it all around the state. Took us 2 years to find it all, but we did, and it's there. Please go check it out. You have a brochure there telling you a little bit about who we are as an organization. Give me a buzz sometime if you really want to sit down and talk and see how you can help us out there. Because it's an all-volunteer organization. We don't have paid staff. These are board members who join the work, trying to make sure that we have a good lock onto the history of Oregon African American story and what the contributions are there. Now, I'm not going to beat up on anybody. Mayor, I'm going to behave myself. I'm going to behave myself. But what I do want to end with is on this. Find your voice. We are living in troubling times. I'm not talking about politics, okay? Lay politics aside, because we all have our positions on any number of things out there. Not politics. Humanity. Humanity. So find your voice when it comes down to humanity and craziness pop up and being said, and a broad brush swaps over and covers everybody. Just find humanity. If we're all able to find our humanity toward each other, this would be a much, much better place. I do believe that we will be able to move further down the road and not regress. My biggest fear, and when you see the exhibit, if you go, the 60s and the 70s, and I'm a child of it, I am scared to death that we're in the middle of it again, because it's a mirror to me. I'm looking in the mirror at the 60s and 70s, and I live in 2018. That should scare the dickens out of anybody up in here. Thank you very much. I'm humbled by this, and we will let the rest of the community know about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is time for public comment. Chad Freeman.
Good evening. Thank you. Sorry I do not have the eloquence. Thank you very much for your comments. So I hope, it's difficult to even follow that, but I really do appreciate your time today. My name is, for the record, my name is Chad Freeman. I'm the president of SEDCOR. We have the honor of working with economic development here in the region, and really wanted to start with thank you both to councilors for your ongoing support of what jobs and investment in this community mean, as well as to the staff that you have that are working on that. We've got a great, very professional, really exceptional group of folks here working on that, so thank you very much. With that, just to preface, I'd like to be here to talk in support of 3.2B, the enterprise zone boundary for Mill Creek Corporate Center. To be clear, this is the extension of the enterprise zone to cover the southern part of the Mill Creek Corporate Center. We have found this to be a very important tool as we're working with folks looking to site at Mill Creek and bring jobs and investment here. I think it further highlights the investment that the city has made and the belief and the willingness to partnership with local companies, or with whether they're local or new companies, to bring those jobs here. A couple important pieces around this extension is that, which strengthens my resolve, and even why this is a good fit, is that this enterprise zone is a tax abatement, but it's only tax abatement on new investment. So anything that's currently in or generating revenue continues to generate revenue for this for the state, for the city. In this case, it does actually bring in new revenue as it incents investment on property that is currently publicly held. That's actually bringing that into the private realm, so able to further generate and support both long-term jobs, new investment, but as well as the short-term revenue of cash flow. So with that, those are the key points. Really, thank you for the support, and like I said, we look forward to working with you at Mill Creek Corporate Center. But I think this is an important asset to continue to grow. So, open for any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions? Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rob Reynolds. And just a reminder, it's 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the amber light goes on. At 3 minutes, the red light goes on. Just stop talking.
The hook, you're going to need the hook with me. My name is Rob
Spotted
Reynolds.
you.
I'm a congressional candidate for the U.S. 5th District, so I will be representing you all hopefully next year if you choose to vote for me. The reason I'm here tonight is the Detroit Reservoir. It's an issue you guys have coming up. It needs to be stopped. You guys are missing who it's really being pushed by, which is NOAA, and I got that from the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're not mentioned in here anywhere. So why would we ship fish from below the dam to up above the dam so they can spawn? Why wouldn't we figure out a new solution to let them spawn where they're at? Why would we drain the reservoir for 2 years and kill the city of Detroit and harm your water, your drinking water, per your city manager, to save fish that aren't even there now? They don't go up above the dam now unless we take them up there. There's no fish ladder. So you as a city, I would hope, would stand up and say, what are you thinking? Let's use some common sense here. If we want to help them to spawn, let's do it where they're at. Let's not destroy a city and ruin our water in the meantime just to save endangered species that don't even go up there now. Anyway, that's my point. My name is Rob Reynolds. I'm congressional candidate for the U.S. 5th District. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Reynolds? Thank you very much. Steve Anderson. Behind Steve is Mark Roush.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Anderson, 3240 Galler Road, Northwest, Salem, Oregon. My comments to you are in the green packet here under written testimony regarding item 6.V-18-10. This is a tough one because as a community, we've worked hard on this. We've got a good relationship with the developer, with a lot of good things that have worked out. But the issue tonight basically is mitigation of 10,000 or 1,083 vehicle trips in the Wallace Road corridor. And why this is important is that the Planning Commission made a decision where there's no mitigation specified. This is a comprehensive plan change and a zone map change in Oregon Administrative Rule 660, and you can read the number there. Goal 12 requires that the local government make a finding of significance or not. And in the city report and all the record, there's only requirement to have 1,083 vehicles on a corridor where ODOT, under the Salem River crossing back in 2010 through 2012, did studies and show that these intersections along Wallace Road currently, as of 2012, are over capacity. They do not meet the volume to capacity ratios, and going forward to 2040 will fail even worse. What that means is that this additional vehicles has to be mitigated. The requirement says under Section 1 of the QUAR, if you find a significant impact, you must provide mitigation. This mitigation is straightforward. There's like 5 choices. It's very easy to do. It doesn't require additional work for staff. It just requires that they look at it and make a finding. I've said statement in here specifically that there's a reliance on a trip cap, and there's no place in the administrative rules or the transportation system plan or in procedure that says a trip cap can be substituted for the requirements under Goal 12 to make a finding of significance or not. Therefore, the decision that was put forth to you by the Planning Commission failed to meet the requirements of Goal 12, but it also doesn't meet the requirements of SRC, the number here, to mitigate negative impacts. What we're asking is that the City Council bring this up, not to preclude the development, but to take a moment, address the issue of mitigation, and come forward, allow us to work with planning and the applicant, and come forward with some mitigation strategy that will say, this capacity system is in danger, there's extra trips on. What do we do to just take care of this little extra bit? Not make the developer pay for everything, but just say, you're going to add a little extra to the system, 1,000 trips. In addition, there are 4 projects on the books that have 7,580 trips proposed in the next year on Wallace Road that are not being mitigated. So that's the request, to bring it up, discuss it. I've talked with Councilman Lewis. He has some opinions for and against it, but I think there's method here to say, as a City Council, you're obligated to implement your code and the administrative rules.
Mr. Anderson.
And so that's what I'm asking. Questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Councilor Lewis.
Not a question, because I've spoken to Mr. Anderson enough. But I'm confused because, again, we're in a position where we're being told by a citizen that the city's not following the rules. And what bothers me is we never get a response from the city. And so I would like to entertain his suggestion that we do have something brought in front of us that will help us understand this particular situation. Because as he mentioned, I am concerned about mitigation. What that means to me is once we get full, We just stop having more people. So I'd like to request that we do get some information in front of this body.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I share some of the points of concern raised by Councilor Lewis and by Mr. Anderson.
Not S-E-N.
Yeah, but, you know, I think this, to me, it's part of a whole broader issue here that is, and we raised this issue when we had a development out on River Road South that, yeah, you know, it's death by 1,000 cuts on this sort of thing. And so it may not apply to this one project, but it's going to apply to very, very many more projects. And I don't know procedurally what we can do with this case because no one has called it up.
Right.
And so either we voted up or down. No, we just have an information item because we didn't call it up. So
Let me suggest something, Councilor, that may at least, I hope, begin to answer the question. We have taken up growth and development as one of our major strategic activities, and it will be dealing with the questions of where is growth going to be, how are we going to mitigate for transportation, for other kinds of environmental impacts, relative to school. I'm sure we will bring up schools. We'll talk about a much larger discussion, and that may be the forum. Now, I'm not saying it is. I'm not, but it may be the forum where we'll get to have that kind of fulsome discussion.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you're right. We have to have a broader discussion on this. And when we get to the information item, I would appreciate some response from staff, at least on this particular issue about can we substitute the cap for other mitigation efforts. I think that's the crux of the issue here. You know, I don't know, Mr. City Attorney, when's the last time this could be called up? Yeah, I mean, tonight.
Just asking the city attorney kind of what the procedure here would look like. To go into a topic like that, it appears you would have to have the issue called up for a city council discussion. I'm wondering if you want to do it with this one or you want to deal with the broader issue through the strategic plan, both, all of the above, whatever your pleasure. We'll find out later, but I think if we start a discussion in detail, we're starting to wander into land use law that may be
I agree,
troublesome.
and you know, we can't have a discussion without an appeal is where it relates to this particular one, although this is a discussion we need to have.
Yeah.
I want to get to step on someone's toes. So the planning staff and the deputy city attorney a few weeks back presented a discussion on this in front of the planning commission to discuss the type of issues that Mr. Anderson is raising. Of course, it's up to the council and the city manager, but we can certainly present an information report to council to explain staff's position on this without having you go through an appeal hearing on this particular item.
Is that acceptable? Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we move along then?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I think, you know, can I just say that I think these are good ideas. I think that as a community, we're working, Mayor, and
Mr.
so I
Anderson?
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, please sit down. Okay, Kevin Sund. 2.
Mark Roush.
Mark Roush is first, then Kevin Sund. Sorry, Kevin.
Hi, my name is Mark Roush. I've recently moved back to the city of Salem after growing up here. What I would like to propose is the city could possibly look into what Fort Collins, Colorado has been doing in regards to building a city-owned fiber network to provide high-speed internet to its residents. With the recent decision from the FCC to repeal net neutrality rules, I would like to see a progressive city like Salem be out ahead of the possible side effects of this decision. As we all know, broadband, if you want true broadband internet, you only have one option. You have coaxial cable that comes into your home. The providers, although we've been paying for the service for years, it's never been upgraded to fiber. So we're talking like 100 megabytes, 150 megabyte speed when we could have gigabyte speed. This proposal, if it was considered, if you look at Fort Collins, Colorado, there's been a lot of anti-lobbying campaigns against the idea. So there would be a lot of pushback for this idea. But I think that our wonderful progressive city, as a homeowner, I would support a bond measure for something like this. And I personally feel that the business opportunities that a gigabyte network in the city would provide, it could create a lot of business opportunities, along with maybe a possible revenue stream for the city too. So I'm new to this, and I really am intrigued with what Fort Collins is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Who we got? Councilor Cook.
Thank you. I wanted to thank you for coming down tonight. This is an issue I feel pretty passionately about as well. Did you see the report last week from our own technology department and the work that they're doing with Wi-Fi, or the strategic plan for wireless internet downtown and downtown internet?
No, I haven't.
All right. Because I am not in technology, I'm a user of technology, I'm afraid of giving you the wrong information, but is there a way that we can get the report from technology last week to you and email it out? Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Who have I got? Councilor Lewis.
Just in the case that you might, but Salem is looking into exactly what you're talking about. I'm curious, Fort Collins, what did it cost them to do it?
That is something that from what I've read, they went through a proposal to find out whether there was even going to be support in the community for it first. And there was a ballot measure, and at this point, I really don't know what the costs are, and so I came down intrigued with what Fort Collins is doing, but I don't really have the financials as far as what it's costing, what it would take for a bond measure or anything like that. I just feel that with the repeal of net neutrality, that we're kind of going down a road where small entrepreneurs could possibly be left out in cold because they don't have the money to pay for the broadband internet speed. And if you had a city that provided gigabyte internet speed, I feel that it would, attract entrepreneurs and businesses to the city of Salem. So, what I'm asking is possibly the city could reach out to Fort Collins to. I'm not sure exactly what the procedures are, but that's what I would like to see.
And I think we will follow up on your suggestion. We have this, again, this is another element in our strategic plan, and we are heading toward assignment of part of our staff, our IT staff, as well as consultants to assist us in heading down this road, much like what you're describing. And we certainly will share with them your suggestion relative to Fort Collins. I mean, we want to know what other cities are doing and what we can do to accomplish the kind of goal you're talking about. We believe it's a major economic development factor, particularly in our downtown.
I know Seattle is also looking at this, but from the size of the city.
I would talk to Fort Collins first.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It's pretty. Okay. Councilor.
And just as a follow-up, there's cities in Oregon who actually have their own municipal broadband as well, and as we go to the NATOA conference every year, and there's cities all across the U.S. who have been doing it for several years, and so we have data that we can access right here in the state as well, and we've been looking at trying to figure out how to get a fiber ring for quite some time as well. There's a lot of people with fiber, but a lot of people who don't necessarily want to share their fiber as well. But we're continuously working on that, and we'll see where we get to here in the next iteration as we continue through our strategic planning process. So
well, thank you.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you very much for coming down. We'll keep in mind that you're interested in this as well, and try to keep you informed when discussion of this is occurring further with the councilors. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Kevin Sun.
Thank you. Kevin Sund, 3225 Sumac Drive South. I am the chair of the Historic Landmark Commission, and I would just like to bring to your attention our 2017 accomplishments and 2018 work plan. 2017 was a great year for us. We had a lot of cases that came before us that were very interesting, especially with Salem and the development that's going on in our historic areas, and it was very exciting. We also had our This Place Matters photo contest again, which we had a lot of participants, but we always want more. So anyone sitting here, please submit your photos to that. And then also our toolbox grant too, and just kind of making sure that we are developing the historical areas and preserving those too. Moving forward, our work plan is focusing on improving existing codes and just kind of the public outreach too, and making sure that everyone in the city of Salem knows, you know, what we're here for and what we're doing, and kind of how we want to preserve just the historic piece of Salem and the historic thread of Salem. We're very excited about that, and we really want to be active in what we're doing this year, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So, any questions?
Well, first, thank you very much for the work you're doing. We really appreciate it. It makes all the difference in Salem to have a strong Historic Landmarks Commission preserving those areas of town that are so special to all of us. So thank you very much. Councilor Kaiser.
Yeah, thank you for giving the report. I'm just curious, is the HLC fully rostered up? Or?
We are, yeah.
All right.
So we had some
Great.
openings for a little bit, and we have actually filled those positions, and we're really excited for kind of the new faces that we have. There were a couple folks that had stepped down, and so we filled those, and we have a great full commission that is excited to serve.
And one more question is, Cessna, I think, was the last heritage neighborhood. Any thoughts on what the next one might be? Is that continuing next year, that program?
It is, yeah. Okay. So we are working to kind of designate the next one and figure that out.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Could you describe this photo contest again, what the photos are? It sort of went right by me.
Yeah, so we have a photo contest every year, and I want to say that it comes out in May. Is that right? Yep, so I'm right. And so it's going to come out, and really it's submitting your photos of historic neighborhoods or places, and we have a couple different categories that are designated for what that can be, and our commission goes through those and votes on them, and then we give out prizes and awards, and really it's to kind of showcase the beautiful places of Salem that people don't really see that often and don't really know that are historic pieces of our community.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Anything
thanks.
else?
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Sun.
Thank you.
Jim Allheiser.
Thank you so much, councilors and mayor, for hearing me. My name's Jim Allheiser, 1160 31st Court Northwest, and I am the chairman of the West Salem Neighborhood Association. Recently, it came to our attention that there was an ODOT bridge condition report. Do you guys happen to see this? Anyway, you will soon if you haven't yet. But it came out with our two bridges and what conditions they were. And basically, these bridges, pretty bad, both of them, the current two bridges. And recognizing that these are lifelines connecting our communities and regarded as ODOT as the first one was structurally deficient and functionally obsolete. These are the two kind of conditions that they had. It's frightening. This council has recently promoted two large bonds supporting the construction of a new police facility and seismically retrofitting the library. The primary reason for these was the city recognition of its responsibility to be prepared for the looming Cascadia earthquake. If the testimonies were more than just hyperbole, then it's our obligation to take these ideas very seriously regarding the bridges as well. Westna officially supported both of those bond measures. And we're confused at this time that the same threat would not also be used to view the bridge situation and the catastrophic results for residents in West Salem and throughout Salem. The fact that the Salem River Crossing project languishes is of concern for the residents of West Salem. We hope that our elected officials protect our safety and well-being. Every month that goes by with inaction brings the community one step closer to an avoidable disaster. So we're just asking to continue to complete the process of the EIS process and move to this essential project forward as soon as possible. And in the interim, Westna would like to know what plans the city officials had should the predictable failure of one or both of the existing bridges occur before a new structurally sound bridge can be built. And so I got a paperwork I hope all of you received, and attached is some questions to kind of just go through and understand what our plan is, just mitigation for this disaster that we all kind of can agree that it's coming at some point. And also there's some links at the bottom there for that report.
Great. Well,
So
thank
any
you very much.
questions?
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's everyone I have signed up. Okay. Except for the public hearing, and we will then move on to that here in a few minutes. Okay, I have consent calendar. Councilor McCoy.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of this consent calendar with the following pull. Item 3.2B by Councilor Hoy.
Go ahead.
Okay, talked about what's on the calendar. We've got the minutes of the January 8th meeting. We have an item, a resolution to authorize the transfer of funds within the general fund to the proper place. It's $400,000. It's for capital, going into the capital improvement fund. It's just a bookkeeping kind of a deal. 3.2C, we authorize the city issue up to $18.6 million of general obligation bonds to finance seismic and building systems improvements to the Salem Public Library and other capital costs. 3.2D, it's a resolution that amends the fee schedule for copies of the Salem Revised Code. We now have a program called MuniCode. It's on the computer. The citizens can go online and look up anything in the code for free. So the fees are going away. Under action items, 3.3A, we've got authorize the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon Office of the Fire Marshal to provide regional hazardous materials emergency response for the State of Oregon for the 2017 to the 2019 biennium. Salem is one of 13 such areas in the state. 3.3B, authorizes the city manager to accept and execute all documents for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA's, performance grant to support the city's emergency management program for the fiscal year 17-18. That's an amount of $121,423, which is 50% of the cost for doing this. And this is the 9th year in a row that we've had this grant. 3.3C, authorizes the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement regarding the administration of a disadvantaged business enterprise program between the Oregon Department of Transportation, Oregon Business Development Department, and the City of Salem. 3.3D, adopts the recommendation from the Municipal Judge Compensation Commission to maintain the current compensation level for the municipal judge and the judges pro tem, eliminate the criteria for setting the compensation levels as that of the top step of the compensation level for the deputy city attorney classification, and effective July 1, 2018, the municipal judge shall receive the same cost of living adjustment as the unrepresentative classifications. 3.3E is authorizes the use of $460,983.88 of sewer systems development charges for the reimbursement of developer-built sewer infrastructure, and authorizes the city manager to execute an agreement to accept the assignment of reimbursement district fees and release the city from having to distribute those fees to the developer.
Very good.
Oh, and one more. 3.3F, confirm direction from the, will confirm direction from the January 16th, 2018 City Council Policy Agenda Work Session and next steps for the staff. And that is your consent calendar.
That is it. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on to public hearings. I'm going to open a public hearing on formation of Lone Oak Road Reimbursement District.
The City Council will now conduct a public hearing concerning the formation of Lone Oak Road Reimbursement District. The criteria applicable to the decision are set forth in Salem Revised Code 200.310. The hearing will be conducted with the staff presentation first, followed by public testimony. Public testimony should be directed at the criteria applicable to the decision. Individuals testifying must provide their name and address or ward. Public testimony shall be provided as follows. The applicant is limited to 15 minutes. The neighborhood association is limited to 5 minutes. Other interested persons are limited to 3 minutes, and the applicant may have up to 7 minutes rebuttal testimony limited to issues raised during the public testimony. A yellow light will appear at the podium when 1 minute remains, and a red light will appear when your time is expired. Please conclude your testimony when the red light appears.
Righty. Okay, we'll begin with staff report.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. While Lyle sets up here, and he's pretty well ready, a few months ago, we were before council with a report on the construction of Lone Oak Road out through the Creekside development and beyond, and we provided a pretty extensive history of what that project had been and not been, and council asked us to come back at some point with some possible solutions. Creation of the reimbursement district is in fact the solution that we have come up with. We have worked for a number of months since then in trying to figure out how best to fund this project and bring it to fruition at some point. So this is the result of those efforts. So I look forward to Lyle's presentation and you taking a look. I also want to introduce Lyle Misbach. He is our Assistant Development Services Engineer, and while Lyle's been with us for almost 13 years, this is his first presentation before council. So he is well rehearsed, and, we hope. But I ask that you be kind to him, as this is his first time. So
yeah. Mr. Misbach, let's see how this goes for you.
See how this goes. Good evening, Mayor Bennett and City Councilors. Again, as Peter indicated, my name is Lyle Misbach, Assistant Chief Development Engineer for the Public Works Department. I'm here tonight to discuss an application to the city for a reimbursement district. Just some quick background. Reimbursement districts. They're allowed in Salem Revised Code Chapter 200 as a mechanism to address the funding of major public infrastructure. When construction of major infrastructure is triggered by the development of a smaller property, yet the infrastructure benefits many other developments in the vicinity, a district can be formed to recoup a portion of these construction costs. Generally, the district is established for a 20-year period to collect fees and repay the costs. Notable examples that have been established in the last year are the street improvements at Trailstead Avenue and 36th and the infrastructure constructed by Bonaventure in that same area. The developer of a project titled Oak Ridge Estates Subdivision submitted a reimbursement district application on October 27, 2017 for the cost of the remaining street improvements to Lone Oak Road between Mildred Lane and Reese Hill Road in South Salem. Before I discuss the particulars of this proposed district, I would like to begin with some background regarding this segment of Lone Oak Road. Lone Oak Road, is highlighted here on the screen, is listed in the Salem Transportation System Plan as a future collector street. It is intended to provide connectivity between Mildred Lane to the north and Reese Hill Road to the south. At the south end, Lone Oak terminates at the urban growth boundary along Reese Hill Road. A development known as Creekside has been in the process since the early 1990s. On the screen, you can see several phases of the Creekside development shown in red. As the development moved forward over the years, Creekside developers constructed Lone Oak Road as it was located within each development phase. One remaining phase of the Creekside development, here shown in green, includes a rather challenging segment of Lone Oak Road, from just south of Muirfield Avenue to the existing segment near Sahaley Drive. The first phase of this difficult segment was completed in 2017 when the right-of-way to establish that roadway was dedicated by platting of Creekside Phase 14. In addition to that segment, the segment between Sahaley Drive and Reese Hill Road to the south has not yet been constructed. However, 2 development projects have been proposed along this section of Lone Oak Road. The first, of course, is Oak Ridge Estates, the applicant for this district. This property received development approvals in 2007 and 2008, but has not been developed to date. The developer is currently required by these decisions to construct the remaining portions of Lone Oak Road as a linking street improvement to serve their development. They requested a modification to allow this reimbursement district to address the overall connection, but only require the southern connection for actually platting their development. The southern connection is intended to be constructed with the first phase of the development, possibly within the next year. The other development spoken of is a 20-acre property which was submitted for land use approval in late 2017. The city is still in the process of reviewing this application. Regarding the overall construction costs of what's remaining on Lone Oak, the city engineer has estimated the cost of these improvements to total $9.3 million. Because of this extraordinary cost, the Oak Ridge Estates developer has filed for a reimbursement district to recoup from neighboring properties a portion of the cost of these required improvements. Staff has reviewed the application for this reimbursement district. The first part of this review process is to establish an overall district boundary. The boundary is bordered by the urban growth boundary on the south and west sides, by the Creekside development along the north side, and Sunnyside Road on the east, but excluding those properties having direct access to Sunnyside Road. Within the established district boundary, staff is recommending 4 distinct sub-areas to be included within that boundary. I will explain how each of these 4 areas is considered to be unique. The Creekside area, outlined in green, includes all undeveloped lots, as in vacant parcels, or underdeveloped lots, such as a large golf course that could still subdivide further, within that original Creekside development. These properties are selected as a distinct area because of how their reimbursement district fee has been established. As follows. On April 7, 2015, the Planning Commission approved a 4-lot subdivision in this area on Sahaley Avenue, circled in red, and established a fee of $9,212 per lot as a proportional share of Lone Oak Road improvements. Staff is recommending that this fee of $9,212 be used for all remaining undeveloped lots within the Creekside area. The next sub-area is the west area, shown on the screen in orange. This area includes all lots that receive direct benefit from construction of Lone Oak Road and is designated to have a proportional 100% share of the total costs. We'll explain further. The next area over, the central area, is shown in red. This area includes all the lots that receive indirect benefit from the construction of Lone Oak through improved street connectivity in that direction, and yet they also have limited access to Sunnyside Road. And this area is proposed to have a 50% share of the total costs. The last area, the east area, is shown in blue. This area includes all lots that receive indirect benefit, again, from the construction of Lone Oak, but they have primary access available on Sunnyside Road. This area is proposed to have a 25% share of the total costs. The next step that staff took is estimating the total of number of lots that might be developed within the district boundary during the 20-year timeframe of the reimbursement district. These lot projections are shown on the screen. Each area is slightly different based on projected lot density and anticipated likelihood to develop in the next 20 years. So back to cost. Remember that the total estimated cost of construction is $9.3 million as shown. The reimbursement district will not be collecting the entire cost because 21% of that collector street, of the cost for that collector street, is eligible for funding from systems development charges. So the remaining balance to be collected through the reimbursement district fees is $7,347,000. Dividing this remaining cost by the total projected number of lots, the reimbursement fees are shown on the screen. The Creekside area, as we discussed earlier, is recommended to be $9,212 per lot, based on the historic fees. The west area has the highest fee of $9,854 per lot. The central area at half that is $49.27, and the east area half again of $24.64. Upon approval of the reimbursement district, properties within the district will be obligated to pay this reimbursement fee at the time of development, which is typically the time of final plat approval. I want to emphasize that point. Properties within the district pay this fee only when they develop their property. No assessment or lien is placed against any properties within the district. If the property does not develop, then it does not owe any fee. Lastly, I would add that the proposed district resolution allows for the developer or any third party who builds a portion of Lone Oak to receive reimbursement of their construction costs. This provision is included because staff anticipates that Lone Oak Road may be constructed in phases over time. In addition to those letters that are on the record, I have talked on the phone with 2 residents with specific questions about how the district is being proposed and will operate, and one resident who feels that the construction of Lone Oak Road will actually have a negative impact on traffic in their neighborhood. This concludes my presentation. I'll leave this slide up for discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the council.
Great. We'll have you answer questions here in a few moments, if you don't mind. Thank you. Very good. Very good. Mark Shipman. We'll find out. And you are representing?
I am representing the Burnt family, Garrett and Alice Burnt, who are the applicants in this application, reimbursement district, before you this evening.
You have
good
15
evening, Mayor
minutes
and
then, Mr. Shipman.
members of the council. For the record, my name is Mark Shipman. I'm a land use attorney with Sawfield Griggs, 250 Church Street, Suite 300, Salem, Oregon 97301. Here representing Alice and Garrett Burnt. Their property was the one back in, I think it was in pink or it was in purple. I guess first of all, I thought Lyle did a great job. I mean, he really laid this out very concisely, very succinctly. But our client's property is 10 acres and it lies just, it's in the west area quadrant, and it lies just north of the word area. That is the Burnts property. And that's what's driving this proposal. Back in 2007, the Burnts were required as a part of their urban growth area permit and as a part of their subdivision permit to do the entire improvement from Murfield on the north all the way south to Reese Hill. And that's just impractical. It just can't be done. And what's been interesting is that every property owner since then that has come in for a development application has done the same thing. And it's just caused consternation, I think, for residents on Sahali as far as putting in additional traffic there. And so, frankly, between public works staff and ourselves and a number of different engineers, we got together and probably with your help as well, we're able to come up with the reimbursement district concept. It's actually not simple, but it can work. And it's really, I think, a great way to be able to cost share the ultimate improvement of that street that really serves more than just one property owner. It's set up as a collector, and it's really it should be a system-wide cost that's shared by the community and not just by any one developer out in that area. In short, we agree with the staff report and findings. The proposed reimbursement district, we believe, is in the public interest, and it's in the best interest for that area. We believe it should be approved and formed. And we would respectfully recommend that you approve Resolution 2018-08 as submitted. And I'm happy to answer any questions of the council at this time.
Are there? Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, and thanks for your presentation, piggybacking on the staff presentation, Mr. Shipman. I appreciate you're not repeating the same information to us again. Here's my question. I'm looking at the yellow there, which is the part of the road that needs to be developed, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so I look at that, and it looks like at least half of it goes through the Creekside development. So do you have any opinion or any view or any facts as to why Creekside didn't pay for it when they did the development?
Wow. Oh, go ahead, Counselor.
No, I just meant no applause. I didn't like the applause.
I don't either.
Yeah, so I'm asking
Expect nobody to do it.
everybody on both sides not to applaud. Thank you very much.
It's really pretty bush. Let's stay out of that for a while.
Councilor Anderson, thank you for the question. You know, when Creekside was developed in phases, I think that we ran into the same problem with that developer. Our office represents that developer, and while I wasn't involved in those applications, my former colleague and partner Chris Gorsuch was. But I think the concept is that I think Lyle phrased it best, that each time that Hawaii Northwest came in for an application, particularly in that area, I think the city would extract a pound of flesh from them with respect to additional improvements and additional requirements. Ultimately, what happened is in 2016, when Mr. Tokarski and Augusta Properties LLC went to plat Phase 14, the Creekside Homeowners Association appealed, and through a settlement agreement between the association and Mr. Tokarski and the city, it was agreed that there'd be a stipulation placed on any further development, any sort of partition, any subdivisions for that portion between Muirfield and where Lone Oak, the improvement area, is currently stopped. So if you look, there's a area on Lone Oak that's fully improved right now. To the north of that, so any further development of those properties in that area that triggers a requirement as a condition of approval and a part of a development agreement, not just a settlement agreement, but a development agreement, that's recorded on all those properties. So if any further development occurs there, that triggers the improvement of that section of Lone Oak, and that also would include the bridge. So that happened in 16 and 17. What the property owner in that area did, they were required by staff to not only engineer and come up with construction drawings for that entire section of Lone Oak that's in yellow to the north there, but also dedicate that right-of-way as well. And so that's been done, and that plat's been finalized. So any further development in that section is going to trigger that improvement. I hope that answers your question.
Well, sort of, but it's good answer.
Okay.
One more follow-up, if I may, Mr. Mayor. So the way I understand it, in the Creekside area, the fees are only going to be paid by either lots that haven't been built as of yet or underdeveloped, which means the golf course. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So all of the developed lots that are in Creekside that might have had to pay for the bridge if they had paid earlier are now going to get to use the bridge but not have to pay for it.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seem to recall several months ago that we saw some pictures of this, the area where the bridge was going to be built. And it looked to me like a construction site that had been started and then, for lack of a better word, abandoned. Do you know, so was the work on this bridge started and then stopped at some point? And if so, when was that?
I'd have to look to staff to answer the specific dates. There was work that was started on it. There was a box culvert that was installed in anticipation of the road continuing from Muirfield to the south. That work was stopped, and I don't, Councilor Hoy, I don't know why it was stopped. I know that since that time, there's been a substantial amount of discussion between the developer to the south and the city with respect to what sort of bridge do we need to build, and I think that's been part of the issue and part of the discussion. And so, today it's a fairly expensive undertaking where it's necessitating our need for my client to come in. In order for my client to develop their property, they would either need to get this reimbursement district in place and modifications to their applications, or it's just not going to happen.
Thank you. A follow-up?
Yes.
I got a little bit confused in there because I'm not sure who all the players are. We're talking about So the developer started the work. I believe that may be Mr. Tokarski. And then you talked also about the developer to the south. Are those all the same? Can you clarify who those players are?
Fair question. So the developer that started the work on the bridge was actually Hawaii Northwest Ventures, and of which Mr. Tokarski was a partner or member. The other developer that I'm referring to is the Burnt family. They're the ones that is the current applicant for the reimbursement in this case. And so they're the ones that have the burden of putting in the street, the bridge, everything. And frankly, everybody has. Even any property owner that would be coming in to develop in that area is going to get hit with the same requirements until we do something to be able to alleviate that in some manner.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or staff, but I'm going to ask it anyways. It's a reimbursement district, so my understanding is the developer would be on the hook for building out the rest of Lone Oak Road first as a condition of the development. Is that correct?
A portion, that's correct.
A portion, right, of that. What if the reimbursement district areas are never developed? And it lasts for 20 years, then they get no money, I'm assuming.
There's no money, there's no development, there's no houses, it's just status quo out there.
This improvement.
If they build the improvement, well, if they build the improvement and they complete the rest of the conditions of approval for their particular development, then they're likely going to be able to put houses in on that particular parcel.
Right, but for the rest of I'm just trying to understand, because the rest of the area, if the west area, central area, east areas are never developed, then those improvement funds or the reimbursement funds would never get to the Burnt family here.
They never flow to the developer, whoever the developer is, and it could be in part to the Burnts, it could be a subsequent developer that buys their property, it could be a subsequent developer that buys the property that the Tokarski Trust owns. So there's just a lot of moving parts here, and I think the way that staff has set this up is fairly equitable when you consider the impact areas that are most hit, which is the Creekside area and the west area, and then as you move to the east, that impact as to Lone Oak is less, and those folks should be charged less.
Sure, yeah, and like I said, maybe it's a question for staff, but trying to understand if those areas, if the Burnt developer builds the rest of Lone Oak, does the improvement, spends the whatever it is, $9 million something to do that, and then those lots in the reimbursement district are never developed, then that money never comes to fruition for the Burnts to be reimbursed. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor McCoy.
But as I understand it, the part of the road of Lone Oak that the Burts are going to be required to build is from Rees Hill to their property. It's just a segment there. It's not that whole, and they need to build that to build the road, to construct anyway. I mean, that's basically what the ruling is.
That's correct, Councilor.
Okay, so so I want to make sure everybody understands. I mean, the road is the condition of them develop the plot that they want to plot. So that's going to happen, and they probably do that anyway.
So let me clarify real quick. So the area that the future development, whether it's I believe it's the Burnts or someone to the south of them, in the west area, that yellow section that represents Lone Oak, they would be responsible for building that section.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To city standard. Okay. So that's going to be their obligation, their burden.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I wanted to point that out with these questions. I think I want to make sure people understand this isn't the whole of Lone Oak all the way down the hill to the bridge. This is from Rees Hill to their property, which is on basically sort of Sahaley, right?
No, their property actually comes short of Sahaley or
Okay.
Sahaley. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But there is a section that continues, that's undeveloped right now, that would continue to the improved portion of Lone Oak and the intersection of Sahaley.
Yeah, so what they build will get them to there. There's another access out from that new neighborhood to Rees Hill, so you've got two ingress, egress streets. and the rest will be built as more lots develop, more money becomes available. Is that correct? I mean, is that how the rest of the road will be developed?
Why don't we save that for the staff discussion? I've got another member of the public that'd like to speak, unless you want to answer that.
I'll leave it for Peter.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Shipman? Yes, go ahead, Tom.
This is just a factual question, Mark. Where is the bridge? Because the bridge is the big cost driver here.
So, Councilor, the bridge, if you were to look on the north portion of the Lone Oak Road as it extends to the north, is it?
The north green portion. Or north yellow portion,
The north yellow portion, thank you. Where the green and the black meet, that's kind of where the bridge will be.
Okay, okay. So about halfway, a little, about 55% north of the, yeah, I understand where it is, where the black and the green and the yellow all meet.
Yeah, it's in that area.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Steve Quady?
My name is Steve Quady, and I live at 1137 Newport. I live in the east area. We've probably lived in there for decades. And I got this notice and got interested in trying to find out more, and I don't still feel up to speed at all. But I have developed some initial opinions, and I was wondering, did anybody receive my written?
Yes.
Good, because I can't find that any of you people would even have that yet. So now I'm not going to talk as much. And but I did notice just listening to that, I'm really for building just that south. I don't think it includes the bridge. My wife and I went over and looked at the bridge yesterday, looked down in the hole there, and what in the world is that? There's a giant, sophisticated structure sitting there. And here it says here under facts and finding number 2, Lone Oak Reimbursement District meets the criteria of SR 200 3.0. The improvements have not been constructed, and the applicant has been submitted to the engineering. There's something there already, and that's just a little technicality. But I'm for the yellow only, not building the bridge, not building the north section yet, and I'm for a reimbursement district if that helps the applicants. But, in my written testimony, and some of the questions about, I believe it's very speculative to see Creekside is going to be used, although if it's already approved, and I don't even know if it's been approved. Creekside Golf Course, I don't want it to be approved, just my own personal opinion, but if it is approved already, then I'd want it on my side for all those lots, those $9,000, to help reduce the speculation. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Very good. I don't have anyone else signed up on this. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello, Mayor and
Yes.
council members. For the record, my name is Phil Carver, and I live in the county, out in the east area. And my question is, can the city assess on lots that are outside the city boundaries for this district, if we don't get it annexed into the city?
It's not an assessment.
Or I mean, the development, the reimbursement,
let the city
development
attorney
charge.
go through that with you.
Question?
Go ahead, answer.
The formation of the district isn't an assessment, it isn't a lien placed on the property. It only happens if you were to come into the city to develop.
So the
if you were to annex
only,
into
the only way
city,
this assessment would go on my property is if we are annexed into the city.
It's not an assessment, it's not a lien.
Well, I mean, but the reimbursement, the payment for development, the development fee, could that occur without the city annexing my property?
Unless you're in that zone.
Okay, so yeah, my property's in the east area. And the second is just sort of a general observation about the east area. I live on Newport Road, and it seems even if if the south area is only built, it has zero benefit to anybody in the central area or the east area. But even if the full road goes all the way to the bridge, and the north portion, the yellow portion, and the south yellow portion, it's really very useless That's not a correct English, but it's not useful to the area elements of the east area because the quickest way to get even to Lone Oak and Kubler would be to go down Reese Hill Road to Sunnyside Road to Kubler, then to Lone Oak and Kubler. So because of the windiness of the road through the neighborhoods. So I don't see how the east area benefits at all, even if the project is fully completed. That's just my observation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Phil. Rich, Fry? And I just ask, if you want to speak, why don't we have you just kind of start lining up and we'll run you through here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. My name is Rich Fry. I'm from Ward 4. You've seen me here before on this issue. I'm also on the Planning Commission tonight. I'm not here speaking as a Planning Commissioner. I am on the board at Creekside, and I live at Creekside, and we do have an issue. We don't mind the reimbursement district. We don't have an issue with that at all. What our issue is that right now there are approximately 130 homes or lots that are on a single access, which is Devon, that runs down kind of right where the red and the orange come together. And all of those houses in there are accessing through that one street. We had a tree down, nobody could get in, nobody could get out. The code for the city says that if you have more than 30 homes on a single access, you have to sprinkle those homes. There is no cap on that number. So there is no cap. There could be 100, there could be 500, there could be 1,000 homes built on one access with our code the way it is. So we need to address that to start with. But as far as the property that's got the application here, that particular property and the one next door that Lyle had on his slide, the same developer has those tied up, and he will be developing those. And we want to make sure that that south portion is constructed before their building permits approved for this new subdivision or any other subdivision in that area. We were also promised when we bought our lots in Creekside that the road going to the north and the bridge would be completed and that the developer would take care of those costs. I have a memorandum of understanding between the homeowners association, the city, and the developer that says the city will now be responsible for the bridge that he was supposed to build, and that he will develop the road at some later date. And to this point, nothing's ever happened. I've been in my house 18 years, and nothing's ever happened. So we want to make sure that these roads get built before any building permits are available for any of those lands in any of those areas to develop. So we're asking the city council to make sure that that's a requirement. The original requirement for the piece that is here today was to build the road and the bridge. I don't believe the south portion was on that. Now they're saying the south portion is on there, but we're not going to say anything about the north portion. So anybody down here has to go all the way down around and out in order to get out instead of being able to go north as we were promised that we'd be able to.
So, Rich, I just want to understand that you're talking about the yellow portion running from Reese Hill north to the green portion. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure I understand.
That is correct.
Okay.
We would want that portion done before there were any building permits issued, so that not everybody's going through Sahali, because Sahali is a private street. It's paid for and maintained by the owners of the homes in Creekside. We pay a monthly dues. We built the streets. They're not built to city standards. We pay for them. We take care of them. Every time that they do another phase or they bring all their construction trucks in, they tear up our roads, we have to pay to fix them. The city doesn't pay a dime for them.
So, is there in the improvement district, you've had a chance to look at this, is there in the improvement district language that would require what you're describing, which is that south portion be built?
There is nothing in the improvement district that requires that.
Did this
In the
go through the
original
planning
approval
commi-
for
did
the
this go-
subdivision, there was talk of the portion to the north.
Did this
I didn't
go-
see anything about the portion to the south.
Did this go through the planning commission?
It did not.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Fry. The memorandum of understanding that you described, what's the date of that? I mean, it was in the past
It's
year or two?
dated the 27th of March, 2015.
Okay, did that have anything to do with the Luba suit, if you know?
It did.
Okay, so that was the way the Luba suit was resolved, was by this memorandum of understanding among the parties?
That's correct.
Okay, and the resolution said that the city will pay for the bridge?
It says the city will pay for the bridge at a cost of not less than $750,000.
Well, it's certainly not less than that.
Well, that's what it says now. And that the developer, if he develops anything else, he's only got about 28 more lots in there, but if he develops, then he has to build the road. And we were able to get him to dedicate the right-of-way to the city. Otherwise, the city would have had to buy that also.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Hoy?
Thank you. I was going to ask the same question on the date that Councilor Anderson asked, but you keep saying the developer and he. Which developer? Can you clarify which developer we're talking about?
It was Hawaii Northwest Ventures, and then it turned into Augusta Land Development or whatever. Mr. Tokarski's had quite a few different developments out there. The lots that were just subdivided are under the Larry Tokarski Trust, and so. But yeah, Mr. Tokarski is who we're really referring to.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, Rich, which road do you live on? What's your address?
Holly Inn, Gavin.
Holly?
Everybody drives right by the front of my house, going down the hill.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name's Larry Schaefer, and I'm a longtime resident of the area. I'd like to speak a little bit about the east area.
And your address, would you mind?
Sorry. My address that I own in this area is 6781 Rainbow Drive, Southeast.
Thank you.
My family has owned this property since 1962. And when I became aware of this district that you're proposing, that's being proposed, I really just do not see any benefit, and that's the whole idea of a reimbursement district, in my understanding, is it has to provide benefit to those that are being charged money. My property is basically borders Reese Hill Road, but it's right where the the blue and the red line merge. For decades, everyone in my neighborhood, my family, has gone to Reese Hill Road, down to Sunnyside and into Salem, or on innumerable streets hopped over to Commercial Street Southeast. Never, ever, ever have we ever had need to even go up as far as Devon, especially if Lone Oak is extended. I can't think of any reasonable reason to use that ever. In no way, other than touring the neighborhoods for pleasure, to have anybody in the east area charged for any of this is, in my opinion, ridiculous. It's somebody's trying to generate a lot of money, and somebody also is not wanting to pay their fair share, because to charge people in the east area, I can't see anybody in the whole blue zone that would ever use that Lone Oak extension. So thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Mr. Schaefer, thank you very much for coming down. I appreciate everybody who comes down, because we've got to make a decision, and we want to get as much input as we can from everybody involved. I guess my question is, I think you're probably right that nobody in the east area who wants to go south is going to go over and use Lone Oak and go up that way. But do you think there's some sort of indirect benefit to your property on Reese Hill Road there if the people in the west area and the central area don't drive Reese Hill Road to get to your property, by your property to get to Sunnyside, instead they go up Lone Oak? In other words, would there be any kind of indirect benefit of less traffic going by your lot from the west area and the central area?
I understand what you're asking, and I think it's a fair question. I really do. There may be a few people in the whole area that might benefit from that, but if you're looking at where the yellow line extends to Reese Hill Road, it's probably just easier to go on to Liberty from that point and go into town that way as well. I just don't see it. And to look at where the south end of the yellow line extends and meets Reese Hill Road, and then the district stops at that point, that makes no sense to me that anyone to the south of that would not be included in the district.
That's not in the city, and that's the issue.
Well, technically, the blue zone, my area of the blue zone, is not in the city either, sir. It's just outside the city limits, and I am concerned about that.
So he won't be a
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
My name is Reg Tenney. My wife and I live at 212 Muirfield Avenue Southeast.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say it again.
It's 212 Muirfield Avenue Southeast.
Okay, thank you.
We also, that is not within the proposed district, but
Oh,
we
okay.
own the lot next door.
That's
that
fine.
is. And our lot is that in the very northwest section of the map. It's that little pimple that goes up there. We also would have no benefit at all from this road being put through. We go out to Liberty by Radiance. We go to Sunnyside by Creekside Road. We would never go that way. And we would have a negative impact on the lot from extra traffic going by that lot. So if this proposal passes and we were to pass, my wife and I were to pass our way, our sons would have a lot that is now worth about $92,000 less than what we paid for it.
Okay. Any questions? Councilor McCoy.
Did you mean $9,200 less than you paid?
$9,200, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jim West. I live at 808 Hazeltine. I'd like to speak in opposition to the reimbursement district. Number one, the area includes the Creekside Golf Club, which I don't believe would really have a benefit from the connection. Most of that area shown in green is down in the valley, and all those folks, if houses were ever to be built there, would go out to Sunnyside or some other location and would probably never use that bridge connection. There are no services up there, there are no jobs up there that would cause them to go up and use that connection. So I really doubt that there's a strong connection or a nexus to demonstrate a benefit to those homes that possibly could be built on the golf club. The second reason is that the golf course itself is in the middle of a lawsuit, and if the ruling goes in favor of the HOA and you set those fees at $9,000 and then you take out 260 houses, you'll still never build that road, and you will have difficulty paying for it. So I think it's foolhardy to assume that you're going to do that until the lawsuit has settled. In my opinion, this is just another example of a developer trying to shift the responsibility to other people. That road, the northern segment of that road, was supposed to be built years ago, and people who bought homes up on Sahalee and in other parts of Creekside paid for that when they paid for their lots. But the road was never built, and now the developer only has a few lots left and now says the cost of the roads is disproportionate with the number of lots I have left. Well, yeah, that's true, because the road should have been built a long time ago when you were collecting those fees. So now the responsibilities is being attempted to shift that to other people, and I don't think that's really fair. And some of those costs have been now shifted to the city, to everybody else who's paid SDC fees all over town to help build a bridge that somebody else, that the developer should have done. As it's been said already, this is really a safety and access issue, and that should be built, especially the northern portion, before any other homes have access into the Creekside neighborhood and up on Sahalee. There's only one way in and out. If anything bad happened, it could be very, very serious, a wildfire or a medical emergency or something like that. So I would suggest that they go back and take another look at who's included in this district and redraw the lines.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Very good.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Strawn. I live at 6685 Trillium Lane, which is about two of the smaller lots just to the left of the W on West there. I just came to be heard tonight. We are taxpayers and enthusiastic about it. I know that's not popular. I believe that we all pay in. I believe that we get common good out of what we pay in, and I believe that this proposal is anathema to that because it's asking a very small number of people. It sounds like, to my relief, that I won't be one of them because I don't plan to live on a developed lot. I plan to stay on my acre and a half and be happy there for about 30 years. But when it comes time to develop that, we're being asked to sell to people who are going to both pay for the road that should have been built to the north, pay for the road that's going to be built in the south, and then they're going to get levied to build the roads that are going to connect that. So right now, everybody there on the left side of that west area is going to go out to Reese Hill, not to this new Lone Oak Road. And so there's going to be a fee to build that road as well. And so I just would like to underscore the inequity of this idea, that it's developers asking people who haven't paid yet, because they're the last ones who can, to build this for them. It should be the city that builds it. It should be the county if it's not going to get annexed. We are in the urban growth boundary, but the county is the one that takes care of the roads out there. And once that happens, we've all paid our taxes. That's what should pay for it. This developer wants the rest of us to pay for it. And I appreciate Councilman Anderson making the point that everybody who drives on these roads from Creekside is not going to help pay for them. And it just strikes me as fundamentally unequal. And I would underscore again, I don't object to paying for these things when it's all of us paying for it. I object to us being singled out as people who live down there because we apparently can, given the calculations that have been made about what this is going to cost. And so it seems like we are an easy target, and that it's just simply inequitable that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My name is Lynn Gear. My husband and I live at 819 Rees Hill. And I think what the gentleman just before me said, the inequality of it, if this road is going to go all the way through to Rees Hill, in those little blue boxes are the only people that are going to have benefit? The people across the street from us are not going to have benefit? I mean, we rarely go above Devon. We always go down Rees Hill to Sunnyside. We rarely go up there. And we're a teeny tiny little dot down there on the bottom of the central area. We're 2 properties down from Devon. We never go up the hill unless there's a yard sale. And this whole long road to come down, all it's going to do is cause more traffic on Rees Hill, and Rees Hill's condition is not great. And we're in the county, and this is a city thing. So not only is it confusing, but it seems a little bit, the inequity of it, that we are going to get stuck paid for it. And besides that, it seems like we keep getting stuck. A year or a year and a half ago, we got stuck because somebody down the hill about a mile from us wanted water from the city. They decided to make a water district. And who's ending up getting stuck for it? And we're in the county. We're on a well. We don't want or need city water. So now we can't develop, and I don't mean develop, but anything we have to get a permit for, if we want to build a new garage or we want to put up something on our property, which is a tiny little half acre, our little piece of heaven, we're going to have to pay $1,600 because the guy down the road wanted city water, and they've put it on us, but not the people across the street. So this makes no sense. And coming down to Rees Hill, like I said, all it's going to do is create more traffic on a street that's already got its own issues. It's this little 2-lane road, and with the development and stuff going on, it's getting torn up by all the huge trucks with gravel and heavy equipment and everything else that's coming up Rees Hill. So I'm completely opposed to that top part. If they want to take it to their little corner of the property there and go north if they want, whoever develops down there, let them pay for it. But I don't see where we should have to pay for it when we're not the only ones going to be using that road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Collum. I live at 6508 Devon Avenue. I'm the top left-hand corner of the central area. When they put that road through to that subdivision, I had to take down my woodshed, move my hot tub, because it took all 20 foot of my easement. But I've got one issue here is that even if we approve all this and we all pay our money and we get that Lone Oak extended, if I wanted to develop my property, there's no infrastructure there. There's no sewer. This isn't going to put sewer in place for me or anyone else in these areas. And that's one of my concerns right now is I am in the county and I'd like to do some maintenance on my septic system. And so I go to the county and they tell me I've got to go to the city to get a LUTS permit, which, you know, they review to basically see if you can hook up to the city sewer because I'm in the urban growth boundary. They're telling me there's a manhole within 200 foot of my property and I can hook up to it. But I can't because the sewer line needs to be run down Devon in order for me to hook up to it. They need a length of sewer line in a manhole. Basically, what I'm getting at here is I can't do maintenance on my septic system and I can't hook up to the city sewer, no matter how much I pay or what I do. I'm stuck. And I guess the point I'm making here is what's going to happen when the rest of people want to develop? Are we all going to have to pay another $4,900 for the next subdivision and then the next subdivision? And pretty soon, if we wanted to develop our lots, would we have to pay $50,000 to the city in order to develop each lot? And also, what are they considering a lot? So I got 2.5 acres. How many lots is that, you know? How much would I have to pay if I wanted to develop that? Anyway,
okay.
Any questions?
Nope, thank you very much.
My name's Dan Shea, 6608 Devon Avenue, Southeast. And since everybody did such a good job speaking on their own, I think I'm just going to read the paper we brought in. We are writing in strong opposition to the inclusion of our property in the reimbursement district, object to the city laying this unnecessary tax, which might not be the correct word, I know, on our non-city property as a completion of a new bridge and the proposed extension of Lone Oak. As far as we knew, the bridge and everything else that they sent to us was all together. It was all one unit. Why does the applicant believe this road will provide a better way or any benefit to all of those living along Devon Avenue, Elkins, Rainbow, north of Reese Hill, Newport? Nobody's ever going to go that way. It's down the hill, around, especially in the wintertime. You'd never even look at it. Some people decided to build there along Sahalee, which is, according to our drawing, which doesn't match that really, isn't included. All those people on that swiggly green area up there, all the people on the Augusta, the swiggly green on going north and south, they're not paying this. They're not part of it. Even a quick glance at the map of the proposed district will confirm and highlight the inequity of the proposed reimbursement district and the added tax burden on those who will not benefit from the project in any substantial way. It goes almost all the way down to Sunnyside Road. Why would anyone drive all the way back up and go over all that stuff just to get out to Kubler or something? We were astounded to see the map that all the properties that will garner the most benefit have been excluded, which I just mentioned on the yellows up there, including the acreage waiting for development at 6617 Devon Avenue, owned by the applicants. Someone buying a piece of property with no roads and plans to develop it needs to include this cost in their financing instead of relying on some neighbors far away from the city. It appears that these people want to develop their land but want others to pay for the necessary road improvements. That is, everyone except their property, which, according to our map, isn't included either. And all the folks who currently live on Sahalee, Lone Oak, Augusta, in other words, those who would benefit the most because they're closest to it, would be excluded. The road extension and the bridge completion would provide maximum benefit to the current property owners. That's it. In order to make use of this new road, well, I just said it, we'd have to snake through and all that. We believe that it is not in the public interest to establish this reimbursement district in the proposed form. It appears that the applicants included as much adjacent property as possible simply to lower their capital outlay cost while not taxing their own property or current residents along these roads without regard to the actual benefit to those in the entire proposed district. The new reimbursement should end on the west side of Devon Avenue. That is, all the red and blue should be out of it. as these would be likely the
Time
only
is
people
up.
using
I'm-
the road
I'm
and
sorry.
bridge.
Thank you
I
very
see it.
much. Great. Any questions? Okay,
Uh,
that's everyone I have
I
signed.
have one question.
No, all done. No, really, time's up. And
I
you don't get to
understand.
question, it goes the other way. I'm sorry. Okay, anyone else? All righty. Okay, it's time to ask questions of staff. I'm going to start, Mr. Fernandez or Lyle, whoever's going to answer these. I want to get a real clear understanding of what happens to people in the city, in the county, inside the urban growth boundary. What is going on with this guy's sewer line? You see, there were a whole lot of testimony there. Can you straighten this all
Yeah,
out?
so let me take a shot at it, if I may. The first is I want to reiterate what the city attorney said. This fee is not an assessment, so if there's no development, people that are already living there, this gentleman spoke about his little piece of heaven. You have your piece of heaven for however long, there is no assessment, you don't pay. It is only if you further develop your property. The boundaries, so the southern boundary is set up at the urban growth boundary. So it does not extend to the south, even though theoretically people south of Reese Hill would have benefit, because we don't anticipate development south of that lane because, you know, at least as it stands today, that would never annex into the city and it would never be developed inside of the city. So only if you develop, only if you turn your property, turn it into a subdivision or a partition and create new lots, do you pay. On the issue of the water line, there is in this area another reimbursement district for a water line that was established 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Glenn, more or less. Again, that is only, as a reimbursement district, only if you develop your property or if you connect to city water. So we've had reimbursement districts where the one in Brush College that the council just passed the settlement with the developer out there, where there were a number of lots that lost their sewer or lost their septic tank, had to connect. Upon connection, that created development, and they had to pay the reimbursement fee for that area. So if you're inside the water reimbursement district, if you connect to the city water system, which means you would have had to annex first, then you'd have to pay the water district. As long as you're on a well, that water line is going down Reese Hill, you don't have to pay for that reimbursement district.
Can you also help the gentleman who was talking? He also talked about his sewer line.
Right. The situation with the sewer, as I understand it, is that gentleman has an issue with his septic tank. The county sanitarian has said that he must connect to sewer. The sewer there is very deep, so it becomes very expensive to connect for just one home. My understanding is that we are working on a solution where he could run a lateral to the manhole at a much shallower situation. It is typically something that we would not allow, but it appears to be the only solution there, and I believe we're working on that solution so that he can connect to city sewer.
Could you make contact with him so that he
Yes, I think Mr. Davis
will
will hand him his card.
Then I guess the other fundamental question, because I've heard this before, I've listened to this issue before, that I would like to understand is what happened that bridge did not get built, that road did not get built at the time of the development. What happened?
Right. So over time, the Creekside in its entirety is a development that was way out of sequence. And what I mean by that is it was built way outside of where the city had developed to that point. So there was a lot of need to extend water, sewer, streets, in addition to whatever's developed inside. That was a decision the City Planning Commission, the City Council made
when?
In the 80s, I want to say, mid to late 80s.
Yeah, I was going to say it's before Nate.
I was very young back then, so so there was a lot of, as Mr. Shipman said, there was a lot of infrastructure associated with Creekside. Creekside built a pump station, Creekside built or funded a portion of Champion Hill Reservoir, built portions of Mildred Lane, as well as the internal streets. So each phase, and it was an intensely phased development, so it came in, you know, a number of phases. I think we're up to phase 14. So each phase then required these improvements. There were added charges for the water system. There were no added charges for streets. So streets is something that they put in periodically. When they jumped to the south side of Jory Creek and built Sahaley, that was allowed without the Lone Oak connection, and then they built that I think it's phase 12 or phase 14, the sort of that very west edge that you see in green, between the green and the black on the other side, and those were allowed to proceed without Lone Oak. So very simply, by the time Lone Oak, the bridge, is required, there's not enough money. And these guys work on a system where they pay for the improvements of each phase as they go along. When they got to the end, there simply wasn't a piece big enough to pay for the bridge, which, Lyle, if you'd bring up the slide that has the cost estimates for each section. Yeah. So the bridge there is, our latest estimate is $5.6 million for the bridge and another $2 million for that northern segment of the street. And they just simply didn't have enough money to, there was not enough developable land to be able to pay for that, and they simply didn't do it. So they started to do it. I think there was a comment, I think Councilor Hoy had the comment, hey, I see the culverts down there. So they made an attempt at it. I believe that was in 05, 06, or 07. And then they realized that it was significantly more expensive, and then the financial issues hit, and they made that initial investment and then walked away from the rest of the project.
Well, how then, listening to Mr. Fry, how did Sahaley get developed without this ingress-egress multiple?
Right. It was allowed to have access to the south tube on Devon to Reese Hill.
What happened? How did that happen?
I have no idea. That was before I had I was here at the City of Salem.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We heard reference, Mr. Fernandez, tonight to an MOU the city signed on 3/27/15. All right. Can you walk us through why on earth we signed that MOU?
Sure. When that phase, those lots that are along the northern edge came through, we were looking, and are still looking, to a way to build this facility. At the time, we had access to an estimate that said the bridge was around $1 million, and that's the best information that we had at the time. So we felt that if we could bring SDCs to bear to build the bridge, and the developer, Creekside, would build the street, we would finally be able to get the bridge. We have since learned that the bridge is significantly more expensive than, it's 5 times, 6 times more expensive than the estimates that we had at the time. So it was an attempt to basically bring SDCs to bear to the project. Our sense, as a segue, using your question as a segue, Councilor, you know, there's a big portion that is the golf course. We have included it because we have been presented with a subdivision, with an idea of a subdivision that has about 300 lots in there. There is the lawsuit that's going on. If the lawsuit, the initial judgment is that the golf course can be developed. I think that's all under appeal. If it goes, we feel that it is only fair that Creekside, that is inside Creekside, and even though it doesn't have a direct benefit, that is still Creekside's, in quotes, responsibility to build Lone Oak, and therefore that should be a part of it. If the golf course doesn't go, if the area doesn't develop the way we've estimated, there's going to be a shortfall, and we still believe that it's important to build the bridge. So at some point in a future bond issue, the staff is going to have to recommend to council that we consider having a line item on a future bond issue to pay for a portion of this, more than likely the bridge portion and the northern portion. As the reimbursement district continues, SDCs and the bond could be reimbursed to do other projects. But in terms of moving this forward, our sense is that we're probably going to have to put it in the next bond issue to get this thing completed.
Okay.
Circling back to the question about who is going to be paying this and who is not. So just to clarify, if you're inside the urban growth boundary but outside the city, you're not going to be paying this assessment or this fee unless you annex into the city. Is that correct?
Correct. If you'd go back to the map, Lyle, with the areas, not just annexing, Counselor, annexing and developing. So if you have, for example, the gentleman that has the failed septic tank, he's going to have to annex into the city to get service. Because that home already exists, he will not have to pay the reimbursement fee. It's only if he subdivides his property and develops the property further.
Thank you. Councilor Cook.
Thank you. Just some questions on the zoning in the area. This is all residential outside of the pending lawsuit with the HOA. And then you also had mentioned Lone Oak as a collector. Can you talk a little bit about the improvements slated and also the speed on collector streets? Would be
Collector
Mr. I'll take that one.
Between, there'd be a 60-foot right-of-way, but generally between 34 and 40 foot wide improvement, depending on whether there's bike lanes and parking or not. And that can be established as it goes along. I don't know if this is designated as a bike path or not at this point. Given its steepness, I'm guessing maybe not. But anyway, between 34 and 40 feet.
Speaking of, a couple follow-ups. Speaking of steepness, do you have a topographical map of this area? I'm quite familiar with this area. You don't have anything listed
I don't
with
have
hills?
anything ready for a slide, no, sorry.
Okay, and also, can you highlight where Bryant Johnson Park is on the map? And just talk a little bit about access to the park at this point and how that may or may not change given this event.
I believe it's right where my cursor is now.
Correct.
And it won't change access to the park itself, but it will potentially provide better access to the park from the south using Lone Oak Road.
And you said the speed, you gave the right-of-way, but not the speed.
The speed,
on collectors.
generally 35 miles on a collector.
Yeah, now it's yes, but in a residential area like this, we'd probably post at 25 because it's all residential.
Thank you.
Councilor McCoy.
Whoever's going to answer this, a couple questions. If you were going to do this again, if this was okay, they came to us now, and the same proposal went up, how would you do things differently than 20 years ago?
So typically, Creekside predates Transportation Systems Development charges. So typically, collector streets are eligible for Transportation Systems Development charge, the excess width beyond residential. So the way we do things today is developers, where the collector passes through their property, developers build the collector, and they get a certain amount of reimbursement for the extra width and the extra depth. The issue here, and the developer has done that. You know, you have Lone Oak from Mildred to Muirfield, where it's built. The issue here is that bridge. So that, you know, it's, I think, knowing today what, if we would have known then what we know today, we would have had some very intense conversations of allowing, you know, whether we should allow further development of Creekside south of the creek without a conversation about how that bridge was going to be funded and constructed. I mean, that's really, the bridge is really the issue. The street you know, we wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for that bridge.
Follow ahead. And then you mentioned SDC fees, Peter. The 1.9, I think it's 1.9 million that is in there as we saw it for the process, I guess.
Right.
That would have been there either way? I mean, it's eligible for DC fees now?
Yeah.
So that would have been in the deal no matter what? That's not
Right.
the city throwing in that money, that would have been part of the deal?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilor Nagy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple things just to clarify for a couple of folks in the in chambers. The one gentleman had asked us to define lot. That's whatever they determine the lot to be, correct? Could be down as low as 4,000
However they
feet, or-
develop, whatever, ultimately, however they subdivide or partition the property.
Correct. But so it could be 10, it could be 40.
It could be 2.
But but each one would pay.
Each lot would pay. The way we develop these
900.
reimbursement districts is we make an assumption based on prior history. I believe we used 5 units to the acre, and then we discount for topography to come up with a number to be able to do the math. So
Okay.
it could develop more intensely, it could develop less intensively.
And then Ms. Gear talked about her 0.5 acres. If she wanted to rebuild her garage or put an accessory dwelling unit on the backside, would she be subject to the payment? And that's what I thought. I just
No,
wanted
she
to make
would be
sure she
subject to
understood
the
that.
water reimbursement district if her well failed and she connected to the water line.
Correct, but not this assessment.
No.
It's not an assessment. Not this fee.
Not this fee.
And then lastly, we had a similar issue where no one would develop on McGilchrist because they would be required to construct the entire improvement from 12th Street to 25th. Somewhat similar, but not, because, there was a facility already there. It was just functionally obsolete for...
Right. So city rules in that case would not allow any further development on McGilchrist or redevelopment unless the street was constructed. And it's the same thing. It's a $20 million, that mile is a $20+ million project. So in that case, the city created the urban renewal district and therefore made the street funded so that that industrial development in that area could develop.
And in this case, if I may, we're talking about a development to the north, but now all the property owners to the south have that same problem as McGilchrist. They're not the owner of the north property, but nobody can develop anything without having to spend millions of dollars on a street that wasn't a requirement of the other development.
Right, and I want to clarify that there's kind of the reason there's 2 parts is because where the yellow line breaks, the street is actually built.
Right.
So the street exists there. The reimbursement district is to build the whole thing. So when we looked at that central area and east area, our thinking was that there would be some benefit, obviously a reduced benefit, with the entirety of the street. There are schools in that area. There's fire protection that can come down from that area. You could have a blockage on Sunnyside. You could. Councilor Anderson brought up the issue of reduced traffic on. So there is a benefit. We recognize that there's a reduced benefit, and that's how we came up with the math to say, well, there's the benefit, but your benefit is significantly less than the west area, or in the Creekside area where the number is really based on past decisions.
Right.
So that's how that number is a historic number for what is proposed to be charged in that area.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. Director Fernandez, that was going to be my first question about the indirect charges, how you reached the 50% and the 25% figure, and you pretty much already explained it. There's nothing else you want to add to it, and I appreciate the fact that there are schools and fires and other things that are coming up, as well as the traffic I mentioned. I know the mayor asked this, like, why did this happen in the beginning? Why wasn't the bridge built during Creekside? And I understand your answer to be pretty much, I don't know, it was before, but you reconstructed that. We had a phase, and all of a sudden, we're out of money on the last phase. But it certainly seems to me that that should have been anticipated by somebody, that the phases are gonna happen, and at some point, we're gonna have to put in the bridge. And I think that time would be when, I don't know how to pronounce it, Salehi? Sahaley, yeah, I knew that wasn't right. I didn't have the accent here. Sahaley, now I've got the accent on the second syllable. That seems to me to be kind of the crucial point when Sahaley was built, because that's pretty much, except for the golf course, is building out Creekside area. And so what happened there? Is that where it came to the situation that, gee, we've only got X number of lots in the Sahaley development, and they're going to have to really pay to build the bridge?
Yeah, like I said, that predates me. I've been here 22 years. I think that was already built when I came here. So I do not know
that seems
what the
to me to be
decision-making, what the representations were at the time. I will tell you that we have been chided over the years by Marion County because that was an area built in the city, but to access it, you had to come out through the county instead of Lone Oak, which was the city street. But I don't know what the thought process was or the representations were at the time that was developed.
Okay. And this is a question for Lyle, because Lyle, I don't think you've asked anything yet, answered anything yet on the first time. So I'm looking at all this stuff with all these attachments, and they all seem to relate to the Burnt's application starting in 2007. There's nothing about what happened to Creekside and that application, but almost all of them have a condition that says complete the construction of Lone Oak Road southeast to the intersection of Murfield Avenue. So that includes the bridge.
That section includes the bridge.
Okay, so the stricture placed on the Burnts is not only do they have to pay for building south to Reese Hill, they have to pay for building north through Creekside.
Well, so the entirety of the reimbursement district addresses the entirety of the missing piece of Lone Oak.
But if there were not a reimbursement district, the Burnts would have to pay for north and south.
Well, in the way the original decisions are written, we only had Lone Oak. We were only looking to the north.
Okay.
In understanding, again, the costs of going to the north and the key issue of needing to have more than one way in and out of the area.
Right.
So to make things affordable, we've decided to recommend that they can have, and in fact, it meets it meets the spirit of the code and it meets the conditions of the code that they can have access to the south by creating that second roadway. So Mr. Fry's issue of the timing, the requirement is that they must build Lone Oak Road to the south to create that second access point. And then the bridge, the northern piece with the bridge, which is the more expensive piece, awaits more funding. And over time.
And the more funding, I did some multiplication, and if, I may be wrong, but if everything in Creekside were built out, all the available lots at the $9,212, you're not going to come anywhere near to have enough money to build a bridge, which is why you were talking about the bonding.
Correct.
So what happens if Creekside is not developed? And there's not going to be a bridge or anything there, is there?
What we would recommend is that the line item be on the bond issue, it would just be a larger line item.
Okay.
So whatever the differential is between the money that's already in the bank and what's missing to go ahead and build it, it would not conclude the reimbursement district.
Yeah.
So as those monies would come in, that would reimburse the bond or reimburse the SDC accounts. We build other streets.
Sure.
With that money.
So
but in terms in a timing situation, if we want to get this thing done in a reasonable amount of time, the fastest way to fund it would be to put it in the next bond issue.
So as a theoretical probability or possibility, the west area could be developed out without the bridge over Jory Creek?
In theory, it could.
Okay, and then in practice, why would it not?
You know, there's only so much development that takes place over the years. You know, you have to put in the infrastructure, et cetera. So we have, even in a situation now where there's a lot of development, there's still just only those 2 lots that are in for development approval. Nothing
right
else,
now, but
nothing else is in. So over time, so the question is how quickly, if council chooses to not put it on the next bond issue, for example, then then it would be another 10 years, another 15 years, and then you would see more development without the northern part built.
Okay, Councilor Cook, is that okay? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Just a question for the city attorney. As far as with the pending lawsuit and the HOA, what are the pros and cons of a decision at this point based on the outcome possible?
Peter's kind of alluded to this a couple of times. So assuming the golf course wins their lawsuit and they're allowed to develop, that money would flow into the reimbursement district. If they lose the lawsuit and can't develop, then it wouldn't, and then you'd have to look at other financial sources to fund the bridge. And so it's there's really no idea when they're going to reach a decision on that, so it could be months away. In the interim, you've got a couple of developments in the west area that are looking to move on this now, and so they would be in a holding pattern for any number of years until that litigation is resolved.
So with the Bernts and their application, if we don't make a decision today or pending that outcome, they're prohibited from developing their lot, or they're responsible for the whole south end of this Lone Oak development?
They're not prohibited from developing. They've got a subdivision decision that right now requires them to build the road and the bridge north. My understanding is they're looking to modify that application, and the MOU that was discussed was the result of us losing a case at Luba where we couldn't impose this requirement, because it was a small development and a very large, expensive improvement. And I'm not telling Mr. Shipman anything he doesn't know. If that case were to go to Luba, we'd probably have a hard time imposing that condition on this development as well. So this is a solution that all sides have worked on. Not everyone's happy with it, of course, but it's moving it forward.
Thank you.
Councilor McCoy.
Peter or Lyle. Like I said, he's very sneaky here. He's doing well on his first time. He doesn't have to answer anything. He's acting like a pro.
Mr. Misbach is great. Is thankful that I'm answering most of the questions.
Yeah, I think he's watched you over the years, Peter. Thinking back to the concerns of the many people, certainly from the east part, but the folks that were living there and they're saying, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't use it. I'm not going to," and it's sort of troubling me. But I've been thinking about it. I'm going to run this out because it seems to me the only logical response, if they're living there and whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 2 acres, and they don't want to develop it, then they're never that fee. Reimbursement fee doesn't take effect. They're fine. They live there and everything. Nothing changes for them, really. But if in some time they get around to my age and say, geez, this is getting to be a lot of yard work here. I don't think I want to do it anymore. And they're going to be their retirement dough, and they sell it to a developer. Once that occurs, then that developer really pays them whatever price they agree on. And then the developer has to include in there, or they include in the price of the developer, the $9,200 or whatever it is, the fee.
Well, in the east, it'd be under $2,500 per lot, right?
But they, whoever it is, and at that point, it seems to me as those develop, they have a lot of weight in their argument. I never use that. And so it's 2 people in the home or 3 or whatever, and now I go down to Reeves Hill. All of a sudden, you've got, if it's 5 homes an acre and it's 10 acres, you got 50 homes, and now you've got 150, 200 people traveling different ways and doing different things. And you multiply that by the number of lots, all of a sudden you've got thousands of people starting to dictate what occurs, and that's a lot bigger issue to deal with, I think, and would result in probably people going different ways and doing different things than before. And I guess my point is, I look at this, and we've talked about this before. This is in my ward, and it's a mess. And with full disclosure, I live at Creekside, but I live up there about where the one is in 9212 Creekside area there. So I'm up on a hill. I'm on the other side of the valley. But the neighborhood wants the bridge. I hear about it all the time. I've been hearing about it since I got elected. I heard about it when I campaigned. They're looking for a solution. We've talked about solutions. This is the first solution. I thought, okay, long term, there's a chance here to do it. And so is that the rationale, though, behind this? Because I understand what they're saying, but if they're not going to pay it till they develop, and if they don't develop, they don't pay it, is that really the rationale how you get to that?
Absolutely. We would be using different terminology. We'd be using a local improvement district or an assessment district if we were going to charge people today for the road. So this is strictly about growth management, the impacts of development and how to manage it, and that's how it lays out. Now, the council could choose to excise the east area. Go to that table, Lyle, if you will. So there's the lots that we estimate for each area and the fees. You could excise the east lots and say, hey, that $296,000 the city will pick up, or reallocate the $296 among the rest of the lots. So, I mean, there's any number of things that the council can do to address this issue. At some point, the project costs what it costs, and the differential, I want to be clear with the council, the differential will be in that bond issue, to actually get it built. But, I say again, as you've played it out, Councilor, this is only for newly established lots and new development, not for existing. The gentleman who spoke that he's got his piece of heaven, he's going to live there for 30 years, he'll outlive this reimbursement district. Even his children, his grandchildren, when they go to develop it, will not pay this.
It's 20 years, right?
This is a 20-year. That's why I said 30 years, he's safe.
Sorry, Kaiser. I'm going to let Kaiser go first.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thanks. I just want to make sure I'm really clear about how this is working, because we've gotten a bit technical, and I'm a fan of plain language. If this passes, say, and this reimbursement district is put into place, and the burnt developer begins to develop, what portion of Lone Oak would they be required to develop?
So let's go back to the map, Lyle, please. So if their decision is amended, they would be required to build the south piece. So that's the yellow that's traverses the west area. Mm-hmm. We estimate that's about a $2 million project. So they would build that, and as lots developed, they would be entitled to reimbursement of those $2 million.
And that is if the decision is amended.
Correct.
So the decision as it stands today, what are they on the hook for developing?
To the north.
All the way through?
To the north. So not the south piece. So because
not the south.
Not the
just
south piece. So so there's that little corner. They're just above the word area. It's that square. So from that piece where the arrow is to the north.
All the way, including the bridge?
Including the bridge.
Okay. That's today as the decision stands right now.
Correct.
This district is created.
Correct.
But nothing south of that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. So, Councilor Kaiser asked the question I was going to ask, but it's a follow-up now from this. So when are we going to know if the Burnt's agreement is amended that they only have to build the south portion of the road?
Well, when it's amended, but in terms of timing, I guess I'll leave it to...
Hello,
Ms.
Lisa
Anderson.
Anderson-Ogilvie, your Deputy Community Development Director. The application is in. It's on hold. We're waiting to see if the reimbursement district is approved. If it is, we will amend the decision.
To allow them only to build the south?
And to pay their portion towards the northern half.
Okay. So their portion toward the north half is that included in the 9,000?
They would pay the
854.
per lot fee, yes.
So they won't be paying, they'll be paying the same amount, it's just that some portion of that is going to go toward the bridge if the bridge is built?
Right, they will have to front the money to build the road, so they'll have to put up the $2 million, and then I think it's 38 lots, 40 lots, so 40 lots times 10,000 will be their initial reimbursement, and then as other lots develop in the reimbursement district, they will have an entitlement up to the cost, their true cost of that, of the road.
So here's my follow-up question. Let's assume things are amended and all they have to do, the Bernts, is to build going south to Reese Hill, and the bridge is never built, for the reasons we discussed, then the benefit to the central area and the east area, the indirect benefit becomes less, doesn't it? Because you're not having fire trucks and...
Oh, it becomes non-existent.
Yeah.
Right. So with this, with the creation of this reimbursement district, it would be my presumption that we would be saying that we are going to build that bridge. And ultimately, the council decides, but with the creation of this reimbursement district, the staff would propose that bridge be on the, that north part be on the next bond
So
issue.
it's a reverse field of bridges, a field of dreams, right? If you create it, you will build.
Right, because if the council chose not to, I'd have to come back and ask the council, well, do you really want to keep that central and east area in? Because then it's factual that what folks have said here today, hey, I'm not getting, even a future development wouldn't get any benefit.
Okay, then, if the north end were to be built through a bond measure, then what would happen is every single lot in Creekside, west area, central area, east area would be paying property taxes every year on some portion of their property taxes on that bond would be used to pay for the bridge instead of only the fee they would be assessed if they want to develop their property.
Right, and your lot and my lot and West Salem.
Yeah, every lot would be.
And everybody would be assessed whatever portion.
We're just looking at the reimbursement district now, because I'm just trying to say, I can see their argument is I don't want to pay this and it stops with development, but if we don't do it this way, then they're going to have to pay at a later date, maybe a different amount, but it'll be over the life of the bond.
Right, Lyle, if you'd bring up the table again. So the difference is we'd have the leverage of whatever money has come in. The total cost, as we estimate, is $9.3 million. So, at some point, that money would come in, and the community would then have, it'd either be less on the bond issue, or the community would have these extra dollars to build street improvements at other locations. Because it would have come in, because the difference would have been on the bond. But we don't know that today, so that's why we have to do it this way.
The thing that troubles me, and I hope is somehow being resolved, is I can just imagine this council chamber discussing this in 1983, and none of this happened, and we're where we are 35 years later. And will there be guarantees that whatever's going to happen is going to happen? This is, I'll be honest with you, I think this is our fault. Not ours, but a city council that did not follow its own rules and ordinances and planning, and they let this thing float for about 25, 30 years until Mr. Fry discovered it as he tried to figure out or whomever discovered it. I heard about it first from Mr. Fry. And all of a sudden it's, what the heck happened here? And I worry about these kind of long, 20 years, there's a lot of changes will occur here and a lot of memories lost. And they're lost today. There's nobody here I think I was one of the few people around back then, not hearing some of this from quite a distance. as Creekside went in. I'm just real concerned that we may be setting up. Can you assure the council, if they were to approve this kind of thing, not this maybe, but something like this, that there is a mechanism in place that makes it happen?
Yes. So once the reimbursement district is set up, and we have these all over town, and the first one, in fact, was the one we just settled out. Well, no, it was, there's the older ones for water and sewer, but this one, this kind of thing, the first one was in '07, and we lay it out, and every time somebody develops, we collect, and the monies are set aside in a trust fund, so it shows up in the budget, and we track it every year, so there's no forgetting that the money is owed and where the money is.
It has been forgotten, though, before, right?
No, not as a reimbursement district.
Oh, this is
no.
new, okay.
And we never forgot the street. It was just never, there were always little pieces so that it was never required. But the streets and the transportation plan, so it was just how to exact it from the developer was the issue.
Well,
the street wasn't forgotten.
Okay, well, that's probably in some ways more disturbing, is we didn't know how to get the developer to pay their obligation on building this street. That's probably one of the single most troubling aspects of this. Are these poor folks, the Burnts, we're not going to let them through the hoop, are we? We're going to catch them and shake them for their money?
Well, we're going to, in fact, we have them held up.
Held up? I wouldn't use that either.
We have them held up with the street, but a court of law is going to tell us that we're going to have to let them go if we don't do this. So that's the difficulty that we find ourselves in, and a streets bond issue is a few years away, as we've had discussions, and it will be before that council, this line item, and then the decision making will be, is it on or isn't it on in terms of timing?
Well, I got to compliment you and your staff for, manager and I were talking about making lemonade out of a real lemon here, because this is one of those that this is why people have problems with government, right here. We're seeing it as it lays out in front of us. Us too. I mean, there's nobody looks at this, including you, I know, tonight, saying, wow, how did this mess get to this point? How do we get out of it? I compliment you finding a way out. I don't know if it's the only way, but it's the only one I see tonight. Councilor Cook. You had your hand up at one point. You went back. No?
No, I don't have.
Okay, Councilor Hoy, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I was just going to underscore what you just said, Mr. Mayor, and I described it to Councilor Cook earlier as an artful solution to a problem that we never should have had to deal with.
Yeah. Councilor McCoy.
Peter, could you bring with the map back that shows the whole street going down to Muirfield? So, Mr. Tenney, I got a note here. He said, yes, I understand his, right up there is the arrow. So, okay, go to the right. The last one there, where the road goes north. The first lot on the left side of that street, where the bridge. That one, is that the one you're talking about, Mr. Tenney? No? Where is that lot? I'm missing it.
This one there.
Okay, why would that lot be in it if the bridge is to the, whatever that is?
Right, so we made a decision to recommend to the council that every lot that is inside of the Creekside development that is not yet developed be subject to this charge. So that is an undeveloped lot, and there were a handful. So 6, 8 Creekside development lots.
Glenn Davis, Chief Development Engineer. There are two lots north of the creek. That one and one.
Okay, so 2.
One other one to the east.
Yeah, this side.
And then we had 25-ish south of the creek that are existing undeveloped lots.
Yeah.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. So, here's the way I'm thinking I'm understanding, and let me know. If we say no to this reimbursement district, the Burnts and everybody else who was in the west area, as a practical matter, will not develop. It'll be very expensive, prohibitively expensive for them to develop.
That would be our presumption.
Okay. If we say yes, Lisa Anderson Ogilvy has said that the Burnt's application will be amended to say that even if we said when we say yes here, they only are responsible for developing the part of Lone Oak that runs through the west area.
That is correct.
And then they will be reimbursed from that situation by anyone in the west area who develops.
By anyone in the reimbursement district, in all 4 areas.
The West Area Reimbursement District.
All 4 areas.
Okay, all 4 areas,
Right.
even for just building that lower. And that's why we end up with the problem of where's the money for the bridge except for a bond issue.
Correct. In terms of timing, that is
And
correct.
if let's say that that's the way we go, and then somebody in the east area wants to build something, but we know we're never going to be building in the reimbursement district, we're never going to be building the north end of Lone Oak. Is there some way that there will be some sort of review process in terms of their percentage fee, or is it just stuck at 25?
I would say that if a decision was made, if the next bond issue debate came forward and the council decided to not include funding for that bridge, that we would be subject to, thinking about what do we do with that east and central area.
But in the
portion of
interim
reimbursement.
between now and the bond, if somebody wants to develop, they're going to be on the hook for their 25%.
That is correct. If they develop.
Yeah,
Right.
if they develop. I mean, that's the point that really needs to be emphasized here. Nothing is happening to anybody in any of this district unless they develop.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Councilor Cook, let me let
I did have my hand up this time. Thank you. Just to clarify, we've kind of alluded to it, but to be clear, when you're saying developed, this is referring to subdividing. This isn't referring, I know Councilor Nanki had said ADUs, or does this mean, could you kind of explain?
You have to create a lot.
Okay,
you have to create another lot.
Only subdividing would be the trigger for this.
Right. Or a partition.
Or partitioning. All right, thank you.
Councilor Hoy.
I'm not sure if we're into deliberation time
yet.
or not.
Yeah, we're trying to understand this, make sure everybody's got there in the same place, and then Councilor McCoy will make a motion.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the benefit to the folks in the east area. And I'm entertaining the idea of maybe suggesting an amendment to get the east area out of there. So I'm really wanting, can you remind us why you think it's appropriate for the east area to be in there?
Sure. In fact, Glenn Davis laid it out, so he's standing here desperate to say something.
I want to hear Lyle explain.
Wow. Lyle is, no, I won't try to do that to Lyle. Lyle is the assistant chief, I'm the chief, so I could maybe try that, but that won't work. Glenn Davis, chief development engineer. I mean, the connectivity is a key component of our transportation system plan. And things like Brian Johnston Park, things like maybe the golf course. I mean, the places that you'll be going, there is that whole element to that. So to exclude it, there is benefit. One of the drawbacks of this process is there's not really a mathematical equation to say what percentage of benefit does the blue area have compared to the orange area. It is somewhat subjective, and so those were based on our basic understanding, general understanding of transportation planning, and that was why those were created. And we specifically excluded the properties that front Sunnyside, who would take direct access off of Sunnyside. So they're the ones that will come to Reese Hill, that we presume will be going both directions on Reese Hill. That was the simple logic.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Kaser.
Thank you. So, say this passes, district is formed, whoever wants to answer. Goes on for 20 years, whatever money's collected is collected, and then it ends. What happens to the money after 20 years? There's not enough to build a bridge, but I'm assuming a piece of that would go and supplement whatever bond money there is.
Right, so we would look to, we could do a couple of things. We could reimburse the transportation SDC account, which would mean that then those monies, that $2 million would only go to growth-related projects, or it would simply go into the transportation accounts to build other transportation improvements. And at that point, those could be any transportation improvements anywhere in the community. So the council, through its authority in adopting the capital improvement program and adopting the capital budget, could decide where that money would be directed to. So that money would be coming into a trust fund. The money would be sitting on trust fund, and assuming everything was paid for, but there were still monies coming in, then we'd have a line item called the Lone Oak Reimbursement District account, and how do we want to spend that money? I would tell you that if there's a lot of development out there, Reese Hill would probably need to be improved. So there's a street right there. Devon might need to be improved. The intersection of Reese Hill and Sunnyside Road might need to be improved. So I think there's going to be opportunities to spend money out in this area as it develops.
Could we quote you on that, Mr. Councilor Nanki?
Thank you. Just one more clarifying on entire process. If we do not form the district and the Hertz development agreement does not get modified, they have the ability to take that to LUBA, stating that the development requirements are in excess of the development itself.
Right now, their agreement, their approval is almost 10 years old. It was approved in 2008, 2009, so they would have to apply to modify their approval. We would impose that condition, and then they would appeal that to LUBA.
And if we lost that, potentially they would have to make a short connection to the north, and then everybody would be on Chehala and using Devon. Sahali. Which would actually exacerbate the existing problem.
Or make the connection to the south without having to pay the fee.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't know, the more we ask clarifying questions, the more muddy it becomes. Yeah, maybe we should just stop digging.
Now.
Yeah, but I do have one question about...
What? Don't let me stop.
Yeah. I just said maybe. I said maybe. There was an issue about when the assessments, reimbursements would kick in, and you indicated that it was when you create a lot. Now, what about the lots that are already there but are sitting empty? We've had a number of people testify, say, I've got a lot that's there, and if I develop on that lot, I'm going to have to pay. But that lot's already there, right, so you're not creating a lot.
You're not partitioning.
You're not partitioning or anything.
No, that's a good question, and we should clarify.
Yeah, there is, the code itself speaks to that. There's conditions of when you have to pay the district fee. Right in the Chapter 200 of code, a building permit is one of those triggers. So a building permit is a trigger for the fee.
Just as a lot partition would be a trigger for the fee.
Yes, so creation of a lot is the same.
The people who own vacant lots are, if they put anything on it, they're going to have to pay.
If they develop, yes. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Councilor.
Exactly.
Okay. You want to try it again?
So what I heard before was if the pimple lot.
Right.
That, sorry, the owner. That lot, if they wanted to just build a house on that and not subdivide it, they would still be
They would
subject?
still pay, and I apologize because I really was trying to clarify for people that already live there.
Okay.
In that case, that would not be the case. But in a lot that exists but is not yet developed,
Okay.
then they would be subject. And I apologize for the confusion.
What if there was in the west area, somebody who had their 3-acre lot or whatever and their house on it, and they wanted to put another structure on there, ADU or something like that? Would they be subject to, if they were within city limits, I guess?
Well, they have to be within city limits.
Yeah.
First of all.
Would that trigger that?
I can answer that. The resolution has a provision that this is for single-family lots. For developments other than single-family, it's the number of trips in ratio. A single-family home makes 9.57 trips, I believe. And so it's the number of trips generated divided by 9.57 would be the proportion of the fee that they'd pay. So most of the time, in adding a shed, adding a bedroom, that's no new trips. That's just one single-family use. So it would be, but an apartment complex or some other development would pay based on trips.
So if you're in the city and you're building an ADU, that would trigger some type of fee. It'd be a percentage, but it would be some.
The ADU, as of right now, we calculate as a multifamily trip. Multifamily use, multifamily vehicle trips would be 6?
2/3. Yeah.
So 6 trips. So 2/3 of the fee.
So there would be 2/3 of the fee if you wanted to build an ADU on an existing single-family lot. An existing lot with an ADU would be 2/3 of the fee.
Right.
Even if you're not subdividing or partitioning.
In the city.
In the city, right. Okay. So that's different than what we were talking about before.
Okay.
Sorry, I had one other question, but I just can't remember it.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Okay.
That's because it's 20 to 9.
Yeah, it's getting late. Let's, why don't we stop now on questioning the staff. I will give Mr. Shipman a chance to close.
7 minutes?
7 minutes to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My clients got hit with a requirement as a part of their development in 2007 that was not proportionate. And we've worked hard over this past year with staff to try to come up with a solution to that we felt was proportionate and was reasonable. If you deny the reimbursement district, then I'm not sure what my clients are going to do. Just to add to the uniqueness of this, my clients are Seventh-day Adventist missionaries, and they're not developers. They've owned this property for many years, and this is their opportunity to take this property and sell it to a developer to be able to make a little bit of money. They're not making a lot of money in order to fund their retirement. It's as simple as that. If it's not approved, I don't know if they'll reapply, but if they do reapply, then Dan and I will be having some serious conversations because it's a whole different ballgame at that point. I feel like this is we meet the criteria. We satisfy all the mandatory approval criteria for this request. It's not perfect, but I think on balance, I think it's a good application. I think it's a good proposal. And again, in closing, I would urge the council to approve the resolution as submitted to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shipman. Okay, Councilor McCoy.
I move the staff recommendation.
Oh, just as far as closing the hearing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, close the
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry, close public hearing. Okay.
I move the staff recommendation.
And then you'll do it? Okay. 6 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, this is an issue that's been in the community in Creekside, but in the ward for quite some time. I think Councilor Hoy had a great way to say it, and I'll maybe put it in my own language. We're sort of cleaning up a mistake that was made. Whoever made it, whenever it was made, how it was made, it doesn't really matter now. The fact remains, we got an issue here that we need to deal with, and you look at all the options, and this is the option that seems to me is the most equitable. We are not doing damage to anybody there that wants to stay in their home and live the way they've lived for the last 15 years or the next 30 years. If and when they choose to sell their property to a developer, and it gets developed, then that's a different issue, and then this kicks in. It's for 20 years. It will, I think, go a long way towards solving the problem. I think we're still going to have money, as Peter indicated before. Getting that bridge built is probably going to be in some bond measure or whenever the next streets transportation kind of a streets bond is sent out to the voters. But rather not have to vote for that. But what's the option? And I guess I can't resist making a pun. I would say that there's a lot of water under the bridge. In this case, there's a lot of water through the culvert that we need to deal with. And so I would urge your yes vote. This is, I think, the solution. I think it's pretty much, looking at it, the only one we really can turn to. And whether you like it or not, I think we owe it to Ward 4 and the folks at Creekside and to give them a solution to a problem that they shouldn't have had to deal with in the first place. And take our medicine and move forward.
Okay. Further discussion? Councilor Anderson.
You know, usually on decisions of this nature, they're all hard, but usually I find it fairly easy to come down on one side or the other, and I don't here. And I think that reluctantly I am going to vote for it, and the reason I am is the lemonade out of lemon sort of situation that we've all talked about. And I'm frankly kind of appalled that it came to this, but it's only going to get worse. The second reason I'm going to vote for it is because these reimbursements are paid only upon development. You know, we're not going to be charging anybody who just stays in their house. And as I understand it, if somebody gets a building permit to build something else on their land that will not involve more trips, like a shed or an outbuilding or something else, they're not going to, or a barn, they are not going to pay either. It's only if you are developing something that will either partition the lot or will add more trips per day, like a second dwelling unit on the lot. So, you know, I negotiate things all the time, and I always say that the best, it's a legal cliche that the best settlement is one where the parties on both sides are a little unhappy with things, and I kind of think that's the way it is here, and so I'm going to hold my nose and vote yes.
Councilor Cook?
I have reservations in voting for this, and one of the main reasons is because of the collector status with Lone Oak and it punching through so close to the park, and just livability issues around the developed homes. As it was talked about before, you know, connectivity is part of our plan, but what does that connectivity mean? Just for vehicles, just for people, and how does that impact quality of life? Not just with the expense, but I want to be careful because in the way that this was a decision that was put off or that was created and now we're dealing with, I want to make sure that we're not creating another situation in trying to solve it that 20 years from now we'll be saying, well, why didn't we lower speeds, or who thought it would be a good idea to make this connection come through in this way?
Okay. What else? Councilor Hoy.
Just to sort of follow up on what Councilor Anderson had to say, I too am not happy about this, having to make this vote. I feel like we came to this negotiation with both hands tied behind our back, and I go back to that MOU that was signed 2 years ago, and I feel like we're maybe both hands tied behind our back, blindfolded, and I don't know what else. So I don't like it at all, but I don't see any option but to vote for it.
Okay. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. I'm very conflicted about the vote. Doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of other options. The city, I guess, really did not do what we were supposed to do over the last 30 years with the way that this is developed. I don't think it's equitable, and I take issue with that considerably. I always put myself in the position, if this was happening in my neighborhood or some other place in Salem, would I feel the same way? Especially if this was happening to an area that maybe didn't have as much political clout and the demographics and things like that. So, but regardless of that, it still doesn't feel equitable. So I don't know if I'll be supporting the motion yet.
Okay. Councilor Nake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate that this was before me. And yeah, this is a challenging proposal that brought before us. I don't see any other way to complete the necessary improvements as well. And then just to speak to Councilor Cook's concern, as we develop this, we can call that street whatever, and the neighborhood associations can request staff to do a traffic study and adjust the speeds to whatever is appropriate for the area as well. And it all comes down to connectivity, and we've had several issues during my tenure here where, you know, even in your ward at Pioneer Cemetery, there's a a lack of connectivity there. These people are experiencing the same thing, and actually we're doing damage to a privately owned road that they could possibly have some redress against us as well. So it's like, need to fix it, make it right. 20 years is not an eternity as well. So I'll support the motion on the floor.
Okay, great.
Excuse me.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, you got the nays? Okay. Motion passes. Okay? We're going to recess here for about 5 minutes, folks. Oh, special orders. Whoops, sorry.
Special orders.
That's right. So, Councilor Hoy, you had a poll?
I did.
He did.
I move staff recommendation.
Okay, that's my work.
Okay.
So I think this agenda this week I've been on the council 9 months now, and this is by far the most difficult agenda we've had in terms of difficult issues to understand. And I pulled this because I didn't quite understand it, and in the meantime, I've had email conversation and as well as other conversations with staff, and my questions have all been resolved. So I had pulled it to get a better clarification. That's since resolved, so I'm ready to move forward unless somebody has something else.
It's the enterprise.
Yes, Councilor Nank.
Yeah, if I may, because I was going to pull it just to say good things about it, and I didn't want to actually disenfranchise staff and make them wait here all night long. But it is what it is.
I didn't think the chariots were still running, but I guess they are. I just got to remember it.
Very nicely. But no, wonderful project, and urban renewal areas inside of facilities that were previously owned by the state are the best kind of urban renewal areas because there was no money moving to the tax rolls, and with the expansion of the enterprise zone, essentially that completes the Mill Creek corporate area to be 100% fully shovel ready and have anybody who comes in it allows us to be able to be competitive in a very interesting market nationally and internationally. So in my opinion, it's a wonderful thing.
Great. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I had some questions about this too, and I spoke to staff, and I'm very well pleased.
Great.
Because there are other cities have enterprise zones, and we need to have that, and it fills the last of the Mill Creek Park, so it's a good deal.
Good. Okay.
We skipped over this one. She's got a presentation.
Yeah, this is Hoy's.
Try to say one.
No, Hoy gets first, I guess. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Travel Salem has an annual report, and Angie wants to tell us all about what's going on. Thank you.
Oh, take one away.
I'm not sure how to get that on here. I'm trying to. I know, right?
A couple hundred years ago.
The mouse is kind of funny. I'm really sorry, but the mouse isn't giving me
That's it.
hard time here.
It's okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. That's a little bit of a hard act to follow, so I hope
We're looking for something light.
yeah, it'll be hopefully light and fun and exciting because we're excited about it. My name is Angie Oniwuchi. I'm president and CEO of Travel Salem, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening to present our annual report. I'm going to review some highlights with you as you have the full report in front of you. I'd like to acknowledge board members in the room this evening, Councilor McQuaid, Courtney Bush, and Scott Snyder with the Grand Hotel. Travel Salem has 3 key performance measurements. The first is economic impact. For the 5th year in a row, estimated economic impact grew 2% to a record high of more than $500 million. That's an $11 million increase in market share over the prior year. With roughly 6,700 direct tourism jobs, tourism is a valuable traded sector employer. The second measurement is transient occupancy tax, also known as TOT. TOT increased 9% over the previous year to the highest level on record, with average daily rate up 5% to almost $94. Travel Salem's influence on the TOT was conservatively estimated at $2.2 million. The third and final key performance measurement is leverage, which tracks donated products and services secured by Travel Salem to work alongside cash resources. Leverage grew 7% over the prior year to $2.5 million. Total revenue for 16-17 was $1.3 million, up 16% over prior year, with increases from both public and private sources. To date, Travel Salem has received a total of $300,000 in Wine Country Plate funds. These monies are working hard to expand our promotional and advertising efforts. We created a 3-to-1 ratio. For every dollar received from public sources, another $3.27 was generated from outside sources, allowing us to be a regional organization. Marketing and communications. I'd like to share with you a quick glimpse at Travel Salem's new brand that was rolled out last year. We worked with former Wieden & Kennedy creatives to build this campaign, and we're so excited about the results. The voice of the brand is positive, confident, upbeat, and reassuring. In and around our state capital are all the really Oregon things visitors are coming here for. Travel Salem, the most Oregon part of Oregon. One of the handouts I provided to you this evening is the manifesto of the brand, which outlines the vision and execution of the campaign for years to come. Here are some examples of print ads from the campaign. Next, I'd like to take you on a 1-minute tour of the website, because we did a full redesign last year. And you can see, sorry, mouse, these different images rotate across the front of the page, showing kind of the diversity of the area. As you scroll, and I can't scroll with this mouse for some reason. Am I not able to scroll with this mouse? I'm so sorry. Okay, there we go. You can see here we have up front promoting things to do in the region, the Ale and Cider Trail. We have our event calendar. Oh, I do apologize. Our event calendar here, where we rotate these 4 slots with upcoming events, and then they can click the full calendar to get a full rundown. We highlight some of our videos here, as video content is really king. And then you can see other sections. I'm so sorry, this is clunky. Places to stay, eat and drink, recreation. And then we have our social media channels feeding into the site here with real live content. So over here, we have the Facebook page feeding in. In the middle, we have our blog. And over here, we have Instagram content. Now, I'm going to click on one example for you because I think it's interesting to look at how user-generated content is being used to promote our destination. So it has a little bit more value if a visitor that's come here is saying, I really love this place. So this is a photo that was taken by somebody when she visited the Bush Conservatory. Her handle is Wonder and Pine, and she hashtagged it, hashtag Salem is MOPO, which is Salem is most Oregon part of Oregon. And that's how we're feeding it onto our website. So that's exciting. One other quick thing I'll show you. Now the scroll is working, that's awesome. Under things to do, we added a section. Really? Seriously? It's been a long day for everybody. Downtown Salem. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's a downtown showcase of all the wonderful things that we have to offer. And again, there's scrolling images that flip across the screen here. And down below, we have events feeding from the rest of the full event calendar, but downtown specific. And up at the top, on the, I'll just mention that that little downtown icon right here is sprinkled throughout the website. So if there's an event, an activity, an asset, a restaurant downtown, it will have that little icon to draw the visitor's attention.
Angie, do you have any trouble keeping it current? We've had a lot of changes going on downtown. Are you keeping up with all that? How?
We are trying. We actually go to all of the Main Street board meetings and the promotion committee activities so that we can stay plugged in and support them in different ways as it's evolving. But it is evolving quickly, and they're doing some really great work. So we're trying to stay on top of it.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Online user sessions. So how is the website performing? Visits to travelsalem.com are up 41% due to strategically driving traffic to the website through paid advertising in our social media channels. We produced 18 social media campaigns last year. I'll highlight 2 briefly. We hosted social media influencers from Seattle and San Francisco, and their activity drove 8,300 engagements and 5 blogs. The campaigns gave Travel Salem direct access to these influencers, 228,000 subscribers. Travel Salem showcased 24 area assets in a social media giveaway. 2,300 visitors from 45 states entered to win, almost all of the United States. The results of the giveaway drove subscription to our consumer e-newsletter and blog. Quickly, I'll highlight Facebook fans increased to 20,000. We had 187,000 engagements, such as likes, shares, comments last year. And video views grew at an outrageous rate. So the new content we're creating is reaching the consumers we're targeting. Travel Salem's blog was promoted through our social media channels. Results included more than 60,000 click-throughs to the website and more than 2 million Facebook impressions. We launched 3 campaigns promoting historic downtown in the region. This resulted in more than 60,000 engagements. On the earned media side, we participated in a Seattle press tour and pitched local products to 13 writers, editors, and bloggers. 5 articles resulted from this press tour so far. We hosted 25 travel writers last year, which resulted in $200,000 in media coverage from outlets such as Du Jour magazine. Willamette Valley Visitors Association, we partnered with WAVA on an 8-week installation at the San Jose Airport called A Slice of Oregon, targeting outbound travelers flying into PDX. This exhibit featured a 16-foot wine bottle featuring wine, heritage, and recreation assets. As you can see from the results, it was a successful campaign. Let's talk destination and development for a second. We launched the Salem Ale and Cider Trail in partnership with the Salem Brewers Association at Cinco de Mayo. To date, 1,500 passports have been sold and 17 fully stamped passports have been redeemed for the incentive. Last year, Destination Development worked diligently on Eclipse marketing and promotions in advance of the event. Our Eclipse webpage had 117,000 visits, and the Eclipse e-newsletter had 2,300 subscribers. Now for conventions and sports marketing. The convention sports program delivered $10 million in group business for 16-17 and also booked $13 million in future business. Room nights were significantly up for the year, which translates to $2.5 million in room revenue for Salem hoteliers. We attended the National Association of Sports Commissions convention and trade show and met with 29 event organizers. We secured 7 RFPs and are actively working the groups listed here. We also attended the Connect Sports Marketplace convention and trade show and met with 32 event organizers. We secured 10 RFPs and are actively working the groups listed here. And yes, that's Shaquille O'Neal. I guess he was a speaker at that event. How lucky. We promoted Hoopla at Spokane's Hoop Fest, which is the largest 3v3 basketball tournament in the world. Hoopla has grown to 988 teams, with 53% of them from out of the area. 2-day attendance is estimated at 32,000. And lastly, convention services assisted 59 groups during the year. That includes curating custom itineraries and staffing information tables at events, for example. This proactive marketing reached roughly 44,000 attendees that came to Salem for their group event. On behalf of Travel Salem's Board of Directors, staff, and the hospitality industry as a whole, I want to express our appreciation for Salem's commitment and vision to tourism economic development. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good, Angie. One question I had was whether you have figured out with your social media, have you monetized that? I mean, are you getting money off clicks on ads or any of that kind of stuff? Does any of that go on?
I don't believe that we're monetizing.
Okay.
No.
How's your membership?
Our membership is at 430.
Excellent.
So we've added about 100 members since last year. It's
Paid?
going very strong. Paying members.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think our goal this year is $130,000 in revenue from our members. So
Does it show in that revenue?
it does on the very back page. of
But
the
in that
report.
pie you showed us?
In the pie as well, yes.
Okay.
So
What's it
last year's membership revenue was about $120,000, so 9% of our overall goal. And we're having, the market is really strong in the hospitality industry, and our members are renewing. We're having much less attrition, which is exciting, but also the existing members are adding a lot of options. They're really expanding their capacity to promote themselves even more. So working well.
Great.
Thanks for asking.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I see this Tri-County Charm Trail. What's that?
So in the
Yeah.
pardon me?
Yeah.
So I handed out a little packet to you guys, each of you, and in there are a couple of things for you. So Councilor Anderson is asking about the Tri-County Charm Trail that is in your packet. And that is a program that was paid for by Wine Country license plate money and executed through Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. It has 33 participants. It's an incentive-based program. Some locations are selling the charms, some of them are giving away for free. 3,500 charms have been distributed at this point. And we are looking to update the program by May or June. There are a lot of folks who want to come on board. There's a couple that want to drop off. But it's been really exciting, and we're hoping to go to phase 2 with that. Thank you for asking, though.
Yes. Two short questions, I think. Well, the questions will be short. Who knows how long the answers will be.
Very short.
I looked at your little blurb, where people are hitting you, hits are coming, and U.S., and then India was like number 2?
India's huge.
Yeah, so what's going on there? Is that really, is that happening? Are we getting lots of tourism from India?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it could be. Yeah.
Well, I
There's
do
a
know
billion people in India, so some of them have to click on the wrong Salem.
Well, Travel Oregon is doing a ton of international promotion,
Okay,
and we tag on through that because we can't afford to do it ourselves. So we partner with them, and we also partner through WAVA to do that. So China is one of the top markets inbound internationally to Oregon, and then to Salem as well. India, Japan, Germany, Italy, lots of international.
The usual
inbound.
suspects.
Yeah.
So my last question, Mr.
But I would say that Russia is also ticking up in the amount of time and on our website, which is interesting.
How do you, yeah. All right, I have the floor here. How do you like your new building? How's that working out?
Oh, it's been wonderful. We're still adjusting a little bit, but the location is really prime, a lot more visibility, and we're really excited about spring and summer when we get a lot of foot traffic. So yeah, it's right next to the parking garage and the convention center, so it's really a great location. Thank you for asking. Hope you guys, if you haven't come in and checked it out, hope you pop by.
Councilor Kaiser.
Just a comment. I really like in the manifesto how it says Salem has enough oddities to check off the see something weird box.
Okay. On that note, Angie, thank you very much. That was very good.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, and we're to the city comments regarding Detroit Dam Downstream Passage Project. We don't have to go through unless you have questions. Have you all had a chance to read this yet?
Yeah. If I may, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is requesting written comment to help scope a National Environmental Policy Act environmental impact statement for a fishery enhancement project at Detroit Dam at the reservoir, because the Santiam, the Detroit Reservoir, has such a significant potential impact. Changes to the Detroit Reservoir and the Santiam have such a significant potential impact to 200,000 water customers. Staff has prepared comments which have been submitted. And for this evening, we are certainly prepared to take as much time as council would like, reviewing those potential impacts and speaking at whatever level of detail, because I know we have the staff here this evening who can speak at that level of detail that councilors would like. This has generated considerable public interest, and we wanted to make sure that councilors, thank you, Mayor, had the opportunity, if you want to take it, to go through the comments that have been submitted.
Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. So the question I've been seeing pop up most is in concern to the water supply. And I guess that's my number one thing in my mind is if Detroit is drained and the water flowing through the North Santiam is, I don't even know how much that would be, what are our options there for water? What would that look like? How would that play out for us?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Lacey Gorse-Priest, and I'm the Water Quality Supervisor for Public Works Utility Operations. That's a fantastic question, and we would like to know the answer to what sorts of flows we would see in that river. At this point, there's a lot of uncertainty with these proposed projects, beginning with exactly the duration of the drawdown if they choose to draw down the reservoir. The extent that they do want to bring the elevation down is quite significant. So if any of you had the opportunity to be up at Detroit Reservoir in 2015 when it was at a very low level, that elevation was at 1425. This proposed project wants to bring that elevation down to a 1310, so significantly lower. That elevation of 1310 stores about 3% of storage. At that point, we won't know exactly what sort of flows we will see in the North Santiam River. You know, we have in our comments alluded to the fact that there is a certain CFS that we need at the Mahama gauge to be able to produce drinking water, and we hope that they take that into consideration. But at this point, there is uncertainty as to the flows that we'll see downstream and how long of a duration we will see low flows downstream.
Will those low flows be subject to kind of the vagaries of current weather? I mean, if we have low snowpack, dry spring and summer, you're really talking about a natural flow, aren't you? Pretty much.
It could be that they get to passive river is what they call it, which whatever's coming into the reservoir is what they're releasing downstream. There are some unregulated flows downstream of the dam, like through the Little North Fork. However, those are not significant flows in the summer months. And would not be able to make up a significant volume of flow that we would need to be able to produce the amount of production of water that we need during summer months when we do see higher demand.
Can I ask a follow-up really quick?
I think it's an existential problem for us. I really do. I think this is a really serious problem. Detroit's done. You know, Gates, Mill City, Mahama Lions, Staten, come on down the river, and they're in deep trouble, particularly if the flows don't meet our need, because that's our water. And they all, including those irrigation districts, I mean, this is quite simply one of the more difficult problems we've seen in that river in years.
Can I ask a follow-up really quick?
Yeah.
So when the flow in 2015 at the 14, whatever you had
The
mentioned.
1425?
Yeah.
That was the elevation.
Okay, what was the water? Was the water flow sufficient to meet the city's needs at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's a lot of negotiation that occurs between the fishery agencies and the Army Corps of Engineers, and that's all related back to the Willamette BIOP. And they talk about these mandated flows that are required to be in the channel. So typically the city of Salem benefits off of those negotiations because they are high enough flows for fish that it wouldn't impact our ability to produce drinking water. So in 2015, we did not see any production issues at our water treatment facility.
Councilor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm kind of a worst case scenario thinker. So let's say we had worst case scenario and we did not have any water out of the Santiam for 2 years. Can we survive that way, or do we have enough other resources, or?
No, the answer is no. We need what we have is survival water, but we would have to curtail to the point where we'd be shutting down any industry that uses water, so we'd be in survival mode. The mayor alluded to it. We own roughly a quarter of the low flow of the river. So the first thing that would happen is we would ask Water Resources to shut down all the use. We are the most senior water rights. We own the most senior water rights. So everybody else upstream would have to shut down for us. So it would create a significant situation. Lacey used an acronym, CFS, it's cubic feet per second. We need 700 is the minimum that we need to be able to operate the plant. So just the pressure head and the flow coming in, usually the requirements for fish are at 1,200, 12 to 1,400.
Yeah, they
So we just sit back and allow the fisheries to require that flow coming out of the dam, so we're fine. But if there's any discussion of dropping, anywhere near 700, it's a serious concern for us in the summertime.
The other part of this that I think is important too, that we're talking quantity, is the real potential for a tremendous detrimental impact to water quality, which could require us to take remedial action at our water treatment plant to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. So just mention that. I really recommend looking at this. I'm going to tell you, I think this is going to be one of our projects over the next year. This is a scoping document. We're not down to the chosen plan yet, but I just got to compliment Lacey and the staff for the work that's been done here. This is really quite good. Yes?
Thank you. So if the water from the Santiam's not available, we've talked about pump stations in the past for the Willamette. Do you have locations, or what was the cost on those? What would be the plan?
So essentially right now, our primary backup plan is our aquifer storage and recovery well system located out in South Salem. So we've already started working with our consultants to increase our operational availability for that system. We also have emergency interties with the City of Kaiser or the City of Staten, although City of Staten will be in the similar boat that we're going to be in. But the cost to develop and design a treatment facility on the Willamette that would adequately meet our needs, that's a very long-term project. In the interim, we do have groundwater rights. There's some enhancements we can make up at the water treatment facility itself, drilling some additional wells to bring groundwater up onto the island and use that water for production. But also there's discussion about the possibility of doing in-town wells.
Is Franson at capacity, or is that something that can be increased for storage?
So as far as finished water in-town storage, we have about 136 million gallons of storage availability. That water is treated, ready to use. Due to fire flow restrictions and things of that nature, that totality of 136 is not available all of the time because we have to be able to meet fire flow demand. However, at the time that this project would occur, we would have taken every operational consideration possible to make sure that we've maximized our storage facilities to ensure that we can continue to try to produce drinking water for our customers.
Right. We don't produce water at Franson. That's strictly storage. So the water's produced at Guerin, and then we store it. It's 95 million gallons at Franson, and that's as much as we can get out of that. As much storage as we can get out of that.
Thank you. And Lacey or Director Fernandez, either one. I know water revenue is a source of revenue for the city. What's the anticipated loss if we're not able to provide?
Yeah, that's a great question, Counselor. If we had to curtail, I can't tell you right now what the revenue loss would be, but it would be significant. I mean, we count on 40, 50 million gallon days in the summertime, and that's part of the revenue. If we were all of a sudden at 25 or 30 million gallons throughout the year, then that differential would be significant, especially if we had to shut down industrial users, because then we wouldn't have the sewer revenue either, which is where the real money is in the utility.
Councilor McCoy.
Just a question probably for the city attorney, but is there any case law that pertains to this kind of a situation, and/or is there statutory requirements that the Army Corps has to consider in what order this water gets distributed or anything like that?
There is. I mean, they're taking this action to, protect the fishery. And I'm not a water law expert. We have attorneys on contract that are water law experts, so I don't want to speculate too much. But our water rights, are subject to the Endangered Species Act too. So there's ways we can address it with the comments, and there's other criteria they have to meet. But I really don't want to speculate at this point.
Councilor Anderson.
I echo all the other comments, and we don't have time to get into this in depth, but what are our options here? Just to file something with the federal government? I mean, I saw one of them was the potential to have a different construction method that would, take less time, but, what are our options and what, if anything, is our leverage?
Right, so we're providing, with the letter that you see in the agenda is initial comments to the environmental impact statement. We will then see how they address the comments. There are other ways, and Lacey's tracking all of this. So there are other construction methods that, if they proceed with the project, there are other construction methods that they can consider that would leave more water in the reservoir. If they choose to go with the absolute worst case scenario for us, then the next step is to start discussions on how they will assist in mitigating this impact, which could be funding more treatment at the plant, which could be funding well fields for us. So there's any number of scenarios. And then leverage is, we have 2 senators and a representative, and, we will need to engage them very seriously to address the issues if it gets to that point. And they are aware of this issue.
I think it would be helpful for us if over the next X number of months, I know we're only at the scoping stage at this point, but as you start moving into preferred alternatives, to keep us informed on a regular basis as to what's going on and solicit maybe even council reaction. I know I'm going to be reacting individually as mayor, and have already talked with some of our elected representatives and intend to talk to all of them, but I think we ought to each take this very seriously, and I really recommend make this a document pretty well, so because I think you're going to start hearing about it at neighborhood groups. The questions will start coming fast and furious. So, and Nanki's a real expert at this stuff, so he really does know this quite well, and I recommend Councilor Nanki as a reference point, along with Lacey is great. You really can't beat her.
And I will be submitting my own comments tomorrow. I had just a couple of questions to staff as well, so that I don't stick in something that's...
Are you chair of the Watershed Council now?
No, I am president of the North Sandium Watershed Council. We had our organizational meeting a week and a half ago, and are now our own 501c3.
So, oh, really?
Yeah.
So you will have a fairly strong voice on this.
Yes, and we've seen the design for the tower for a few years, so that part's nothing new. It's the construction phasing and timing that was finally released and is what's drawn the significant attention from interested stakeholders in the canyon.
Well, I think I don't know, it caught me off guard. I'd heard of this many years ago, this idea of a warming tower, but it was like just a few weeks ago began hearing that they were actually going to do it at a couple $100 million. And if you're interested, they tried this at Billy Chinook, they've tried this and at Cougar, and with real interesting results. We're going to have a meeting. PGE is one of the utilities involved, right, and they're going to give us a briefing on. And those of you who are interested, I would let Lacey and Peter know that you'd like to be in on any briefings or any kind of discussion on this if this is an area you're interested in. Yes.
Are we reaching out to Staten and the other communities affected?
Yes.
And I mean, because there could be something there as far as writing something or coming together as kind of one voice, if we can get to that point.
We are. We're planning, I think, it soon to have a water. Go ahead, Lisa. You know how. Lisa,
Yes,
you know how to say
absolutely.
it.
So we also thought that that would be a good opportunity for us to voice common concerns. And so we are trying to set up a meeting with all of the other water suppliers from the North Santiam for the middle of February. And we are hoping to get together and the Army Corps will come and present at that meeting. The presentation that you all have is their kind of standard presentation that they've been giving at these public meetings. And so they'll probably come give us the same presentation we've already seen. But it's really an opportunity for us to voice our concerns to the types of issues that we're going to see in the river downstream from Detroit Dam and the quality issues that we're concerned about. And so we do have that meeting tentatively scheduled for the middle of February. Another opportunity would be for us to come up with some sort of common messaging for the construction of this project, and so that we're all kind of hearing the same thing from the water suppliers up and down, so our customers aren't hearing different messaging.
Yes, Councilor.
Actually, I did have a couple of questions, and then just a comment, because the Army Corps will be at next month's Watershed Council meeting as well on the second Thursday, and I talked to Tim Ernster on that as well, who's the author of this report that's in your packet, and he basically said it will be similar to the presentations that were given at both of the meetings up in the canyon and one previously in Salem as well. You had put in comments on putting a pneumatic caisson.
Mm-hmm.
What's the elevation maximum on that kind of a structure? Because I was going to suggest a modest coffer dam to keep some capacity and let them to build. Even if it flooded, they could pump it out if we had significant back-to-back rain events, and they weren't able to maintain discharge rates that would not cause flooding downstream.
That was actually a comment that was submitted from Nitin Joshi, who is our environmental and regulatory manager, and that comes from experience that he's had in previous employment and that his father has had in suggesting alternative construction methods. So I don't know the specifics on that, but I would be happy to put you in contact with Nitin so he could fill you in.
Because last time I talked with Mr. Ernster, he said that based on the amount they can draw down, it would essentially, to get it to the point where they could do anything, would be February. So to me, that says we can do construction in the winter potentially as well, and that's our water use in the winter, our potential for algal blossoms in the winter. All of those are the irrigation withdrawal. The likelihood that we would have issues in the winter is much less than if we allowed it to remain through a summer season, correct?
Yes, and generally speaking, that is true. If one of the pages, if you do pay critical attention, is this page here, which it lists out the alternatives. So what they're projecting kind of is the bookends, right? So part of it, alternative one, is looking at drawing this reservoir down to 1310 for 2 full years. And that has huge implications, as you can imagine, to the communities up in the canyon, and then also for water quantity for us for 2 years. And then kind of at the other end, or the other book end, is to build this structure completely in the wet, which means they're going to do all of it underwater using divers, which has a lot of safety and risk issues associated with it. It's expensive, and it draws the project out, and from a water quality perspective, it doesn't alleviate any water quality concerns, because they're going to be doing a lot of demolition and construction underwater, which will still stir material up. The alternative 3, which is the variable drawdown with the cofferdam, at the last meeting I was at, they basically said that they don't believe that this is any longer a technically feasible option. So that one is, they're going to pull that one off the table. So you're left with the other 2, which is the partial construction and the wet short-term drawdown, or the full construction and the dry with the variable drawdown. One of the concerns about building this in the wet and having it drawn down is they still have to manage flood control at this facility through construction of this project. So when they're forecasting out and they see a storm coming in, they're going to have to pull all those people and equipment and demobilize that construction site, fill that reservoir to mitigate for flood control, let that water go back out, and then be able to get back in and do the work again. So there are implications with doing it in the wet season as well, because as you can imagine, demobbing and mobbing a construction site will have a lot of sediment and things that could possibly be stirred up associated with that.
Yeah, I'll look at Kazon's, because I'm assuming Nitin is thinking the same thing that I am, save for I wasn't thinking of a full cofferdam. It'd just be enough to allow that flood storage and continue them being able to work on that. And then I would suggest in other discussions as well, they're trying to get this thing done in 2 to 3 years. It's like, how about we take 8 and do it all in multiple winter series or precast and make a giant Lego facility. And I'd mentioned that to Mr. Peterson at the very first meeting up there, and he said, shoot those comments in, because I talked with the folks at Detroit as far as what they see as far as levels. Like, I'm concerned with a couple of the comments because we could draw it down faster on the front end and possibly give them some dry time to work, but that's when it's going to be at its hottest. And so depending on how fast that water moves through our system, I don't know what negative impacts might be to the municipal water supply. So we'll shoot them in there, let them figure out from all the comments, but we need to make sure that they have all the potential comments in there because they will evaluate them. And Ms. James will get back to people. She's tasked with reviewing all of them as long as they're constructive comments and not just, what the heck is this? Because the project is going to go through. It would need an act of Congress not to. And we see how well they're getting stuff done up at the top.
Yeah. It's unfunded at this point, so okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Do you want to take any action on this, or would you like to just
They've
sort
already
of keep
submitted
track of it?
comments, correct? Yeah.
We'll have, just ask for ongoing reporting on it. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Good.
Because tomorrow's the deadline. If anybody else wants to throw it in.
Okay, information reports. We had the discussion of the Landmarks Commission. Got a couple of planning issues. Anything anyone wants to talk about? If not, we are going to adjourn here.
No, well,
Can I put an information item?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I see that Ms. Farrell is still here, so I'm sorry you had to wait the whole time on this, on the administrative rulemaking for Minto Island Conservation Area Restrictions and Guidelines. I just want to say that we spoke today, and I understand that the scope of the council's limitation of review on this is basically nothing. I mean,
Well, Ms. Farrell can speak to the specifics in the draft rule, but it is an administrative process.
Right. I understand that. No, and that's fine with me. I just want to say that I submitted some comments to Ms. Farrell about the number of people allowed and things that were related to MICA. Are they going to be on the pass or not? And I was speaking from some experience, having been in things like triathlons and other races, that we really need to be careful that we don't have anyone other than participants running through the MICA area. And I also had some concerns about the ultimate number of 1,000 people, because I know from experience if you have 1,000 people there, you're going to have 2,000 or 3,000 people, support crews, family, and it's good. So it's going to be a lot of people if we go that high. So I'm happy that she heard my comments, and we'll wait to see what happens. I'm not saying she's going to follow. I'm just saying she heard it. I got
as
my
long as she's here. Patricia, could you just very briefly describe kind of the process you went through and the stakeholders that are involved in arriving at this kind of, it sounds like a fairly negotiated
Sure, yes, thank you.
decision.
Patricia Farrell, a Natural Resource and Parks Planning Manager. Good evening. Yes, so this has been kind of a long process to come up with these numbers. Basically, the parameters were if it's less than 150 people, there's no permit necessary currently. We looked at all the past events through Minto to try to figure out kind of a breaking point between smaller events and medium-sized and larger events. And so we came up with a 400 limit based on kind of medium-sized events. So that's where that threshold came from. And then the 1,000, the allowance for one event of less than 1,000 came because there was a strong desire for a marathon. And a lot of people, we talked to several of the Gallagher's Fitness and Friends of Two Bridges, and they had expressed concern that they were under the impression that when the bridge was put in, that was one of the desires of the community was to have a marathon. So we thought we would allow one of those events to occur during the bird nesting season. So that's where those numbers came from. And we've spoken about these numbers to SPRAB, Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, twice, and Can Do, I went to their board meeting last week, Glen Gibson Watershed Council, the Gallagher's, Friends of Two Bridges, the Salem Audubon Society, and BPA and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, who are the two that kind of regulate the conservation area.
Great. So everybody's pretty much on board on this at this point? I mean, understanding there may have been some interest in more marathons or something, but is this pretty well a resolved issue then at this point?
Well, I have heard some concerns expressed from different people, and so I'm expecting during the public comment period, which will open tomorrow, hopefully, and go 15 days, that I will get some comments on that.
And this is based on the natural character and funding, actually the environmental funding that came from Minto, right? Is that
right? It was purchased with Willamette Wildlife Mitigation Funds, and so because of that, there's a conservation easement across the 307 acres, and there's an emphasis that it be managed for wildlife. And so this was an attempt to balance recreation and wildlife.
Okay, great. Questions? Great. Thank you for staying with us. I appreciate it. Because I'm sure we're going to hear a little about this before it's gone. Okay? Does anyone want to hear about the command vehicle, or? You want to talk about the command vehicle? Just tell us it's coming.
I'm more than happy to.
Okay. I just feel guilty that you're still here.
We made it this far, right?
As long as you can listen to Creekside road problems, we can listen to yours.
Oh, that was actually pretty interesting. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thanks for the opportunity to be here in front of you. I'm George Burke. I'm Deputy Chief with Salem Police, as you can see. We're pretty excited about where we're at with command vehicle. We have actually put the purchase order in. We have a chassis on order, and that we expect to have that show up hopefully any time. So once that chassis arrives at Farber, which is the manufacturer, we're about 120 days out from actually having it delivered. So what we've been talking about for several years and really has been a great need has really shown through in fruition, and we're going to see a product here very quickly, which is pretty exciting. I'm more than happy to give you all the details if you really, really want to hear everything that goes into this.
We want the tour.
But you'll get the tour. It is just
yeah, the ride along.
It is a super nice. I mean, it's a motorhome, and it has all of the technologies that we would need in order to, if we have a critical incident. We really want this to be something that we utilize on a frequent basis, whether it's getting it out in our communities for National Night Out, whether it's doing bicycle rodeos, whether it's being out just engaging our community, or out on critical events, critical incidents. So pretty versatile setup. Having been in one several times in my career, it was really good for us to go back to Farber, take a look at the vehicles they had there, and just like I say, really excited about bringing that forward and bringing it to the city of Salem.
We join you in that excitement. Councilor Lewis?
Well, since it came up, I noticed that the numbers didn't exactly add up. There's $600,000 of income, but the expense is $641,000. So where does the other $41,000 come from?
Well, we have we had anticipated some issues as far as what the ultimate cost was going to be. We actually, when we first started talking about it, it was believed it was going to be higher. We made some reductions in the type of vehicle that we were utilizing, and so we've been able to, over the last couple of years, at least planning ahead, and having some reserves available that we would be able to take care of that. So we're not going back asking for any additional funds.
This is, we realize this is a one-time shot to get it right, and making any further cuts at this point would really diminish the functionality of the vehicle.
Very good. Anyone else? Yes.
You're going to have to get a vanity horn for it then. If you're going to take it out, like something that plays something. Like,
You know, I'm sure we can take some great input on what we need.
Ludicrous mood, get out the way.
I would say that the fact that the first rendition had the Oregon Duck stuff on it didn't impress my boss, so that's not going to happen.
Very good. Thank you very much. Annie, how we been doing in economic development as long as you're here?
Good evening, Annie Gorski, sitting in for Kristen Rutherford. We have a quarterly report in terms of information reports that highlights activity. We reference the North Gateway Streetscape projects that are underway or about to start this spring. We reference some improvements planned to improve and streamline zoning in the West Salem urban renewal area. That's also underway and going to be coming to council in February. And we make some reference or highlight a couple of things going on at the airport. We have 2 hangars that are under construction at the airport, which is good news. And we are starting on an airport business plan later this spring. So that's what's in the report tonight.
Great. Any questions on economic development, anyone? Okay. Is there any questions on anything else under information reports? Then we are adjourned.